Chapter 1468. Seeing the leaders of the group arrive, everyone calmed down and hurriedly followed behind them. Yi Hao and Yu Sanjiang were also in the crowd. Yi Hao looked at the two leaders and asked, "Who are these two? Why are they so arrogant?" Yu Sanjiang introduced them to Yi Hao in a low voice. "Shoo, keep your voice down. Their cultivation is the highest in our group, so it's normal for them to be arrogant. The one with the saber is called Yin Shuangfei, and the one with the sword is Lear. The two of them have extraordinary attainments in the way of the saber and the sword, and they have already reached a higher level at such a young age." Many seniors praised them endlessly. Yi Hao suddenly asked, "Can you beat them? You're the young master of the Yu family." Yu Sanjiang was speechless for a moment. Before Yu Sanjiang could answer, Yi Hao said again, "That's right. They're at the 8th level of the spiritual emperor realm, and you're only at the 7th level. You definitely can't beat them." "Who said that?" Yu Sanjiang said angrily. "We haven't even fought yet. How do you know that I can't beat them?" "That's true." Yi Hao played with the jade Buddha stone in his hand and walked at the back of the group with Yu Sanjiang. As they walked, Yi Hao suddenly felt that something was wrong. Yu Sanjiang looked at Yi Hao, who had a serious expression, and asked, "What's wrong?" Yi Hao carefully touched the wall of the cave and faintly felt a weak spiritual power flowing on the wall. Although he was not very sure, he was already on his guard. Yi Hao took out a spiritual stone with an array engraved on it and handed it to Yu Sanjiang, saying, "Don't speak. Hold the spiritual stone in your hand and follow me quietly." Yu Sanjiang did not ask any questions and did as he was told. Gradually, the group came from the narrow corridor to the spacious depths of the cave. Before they reached the deepest part, they could faintly hear the roars of demonic beasts. "Haha, Du Shanwen, Mao Ichio, and Wang Hai definitely didn't expect us to appear here." That's right. Judging from the sounds, the battle between the three of them and the demonic beast has reached its climax. With young Master Yin and young Master Li here, it would be useless even if they knew. Moreover, there are so many people here. Those three fellows are dead meat. That's right. We'll win for sure. Excited smiles appeared on everyone's faces. Some of them even began to plan how to distribute the battle orders after eliminating the magical beasts and the top three on the leaderboard. Only the two people in the lead and the two people at the end of the team did not reveal excited smiles. The two leaders looked at the excited crowd behind them and sneered. The two people at the back looked calm, as usual. Yin Shuangfei, who was hugging his saber, couldn't help but sneer. "This bunch of idiots. They don't even know that death is at hand." Lier said indifferently, "You can't blame them. After all, in the face of huge benefits, no one can remain calm. We're almost there. Let's hurry up." At the end of the team, Yu Sanjiang's calm eyes hid deep doubts. Yi Hao looked at him and shook his head gently. Then Yu Sanjiang put away his doubts and followed behind Yi Hao. Not long after, the crowd followed Yin Shuangfei and Li Er to the deepest part of the cave. There, they saw the demonic beast lying on the ground, bleeding and moaning. At the front of the demonic beast, three weak figures sat on the ground, gasping for breath. Especially when the three weak figures saw them coming, the fear in their eyes made them even more excited. Before Yin Shuangfei and Li Er could say anything, the crowd had already drawn their weapons and rushed toward the demonic beast and the three weak figures in front of them. "Charge! The demonic beast is right in front of us. Take it down and we'll definitely advance." That's right, the top three are also there. They definitely didn't expect us to come. Haha. Whatever, let's kill. We'll take whatever we can get. If we're too late, we'll lose everything. Just as the crowd rushed out, Yi Hao pulled Yu Sanjiang behind a hidden boulder and quietly watched the development of the situation. Yu Sanjiang looked at the scene in the depths of the cave and couldn't help but be stunned. Yi Hao hurriedly covered Yu Sanjiang's mouth and forced him to swallow the rest of his words. Then, he stared unblinkingly at Yin Shuangfei and Li Er. Yin Shuangfei stood in place and looked at the greedy crowd. The corner of his mouth curled up, and he laughed out loud. "Ha, what a bunch of idiots. They're actually killing each other." Just as Yin Shuangfei said, The targets of the people who rushed out were not the demonic beasts, nor were they the top 3 rankers. Instead, they were the people who had accompanied them all the way here. At this moment, the figure of a middle-aged man appeared on the far right side of the cave. That figure walked past the frenzied crowd and came to Yin Shuangfei and Lier's side. He smiled and said, "Isn't this all thanks to you guys? You saved us a lot of trouble." Wang Han. Yu Sanjiang looked at this person, the corner of his eyes twitching violently. Then, a rich man in brocade clothes came to the side of the 3. He smiled and said, "You can't say that. If the 3 of us hadn't set up a formation here in advance, I'm afraid it wouldn't have been so easy." Mao Ichio. The corner of Yu Sanjiang's mouth twitched. He didn't know what to say. Finally, a man with a sword and a saber slowly walked past the crowd that was killing each other. Every step he took, there would be a cultivator lying quietly in a pool of blood. He came to the middle of the crowd and said calmly, "That's right. The ghost formation is what we relied on to succeed this time. Without the ghost formation, even if you guys lured the demonic beast here, it would have taken a lot of effort." Du Shanwen. Yu Sanjiang was completely confused. What was going on? Seeing this, Yihao retracted his hand and sneered. "It's clear now. There's no demonic beast at the 9th level of the Spirit Emperor realm. This is just a trap set up by these guys to lure everyone here. First, they spread the news that they were going to kill the demonic beast and lure everyone here to fight for it. Then, they secretly set up a ghost formation in the cave to confuse everyone and lure them into killing each other. Finally, they just sat back and reaped the benefits. What a good plan. How insidious." Yu Sanjiang swallowed his saliva and asked, "How did you see through it in the beginning? Why weren't we confused by the ghost formation? Why did we see different things from what others saw? From the beginning, when I spread the news, I felt that there was something wrong. But you were right. Wealth comes from danger. So I came to find out what was going on. After entering the cave, I felt a weak spiritual energy flowing on the wall. I suspected it was a ghost formation. So I gave you a spirit stone with a method to break the formation. That's why we weren't confused. Along the way, the demonic beast roars and the weak figures they heard were all fake. They were all deliberately heard and seen by the ghost formation after it confused their minds." Chapter 1469. Yu Sanjiang looked at the 5 people who were plotting with anger in his eyes. These guys have been colluding with each other for a long time. How insidious. Yihao was silent, thinking about his next move. To be honest, 5 powerhouses of the 8th level of the Spiritual Emperor realm were not easy to deal with. However, there were so many battle tokens. If it didn't take them now, they might not have such a good opportunity in the future. Yu Sanjiang was also thinking about it, but he was much more decisive than Yihao. He directly said to Yihao, "Brother Yi, even if that's the case, the 5 of them are all 8th level Spirit Emperors. If we want to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, I'm afraid it's impossible." Yihao turned around, looked at him, and asked seriously, "If a fight really breaks out, how many of them can you hold? You want to fight?" Yihao didn't say anything, but looked at him seriously. Yu Sanjiang sighed and said helplessly, "If a fight really breaks out, I can hold 2 of them, but not for long." "Okay, then I'll leave Yin Shuangfei and Lier to you. I'll help you after I deal with the other 3. Yu Sanjiang opened his eyes wide and said in disbelief, "Did I hear wrong? They are 3 cultivators of the 8th level of the Spiritual Emperor realm. How can you, a mere 5th level of the Spiritual Emperor realm, deal with them?" Yihao said with a smile, "Yu Sanjiang, do you want to advance?" "Nonsense, of course I want to." "Then let's take a gamble." Not far away, the 5 people who were plotting had a small dispute over the distribution of the battle tokens. Yin Shuangfei stood proudly and said, "I don't care who has the most credit. Lier and I will each take 30% of the battle tokens here. You could divide the rest equally." "What did you say?" Wang Hai stepped forward angrily and said, "Why should you and Lier take 60%? We should divide it equally, 20% each." "That's right, we should divide it equally." Mao Ichio echoed. Du Shangwen quietly unsheathed the sword and saber that he had just sheathed. He said indifferently, Swallows, this is not quite the same as what we agreed on at the beginning. You're breaking the rules. Lear, do you think so too? Lier yawned lazily and said with a smile, Actually, Yin Shuangfei, and I didn't want to leave even 10% of the battle tokens. And I tried my best to persuade him to leave 40%. Since you are so, we will take all the battle tokens. As soon as Lear's voice fell, a loud noise sounded in the cave. Calm. Yin. Yin Shuangfei. Yin. Yin Shuangfei time. Yin. Yin. Yin Shuangfei picked his ears impatiently and said, You are so noisy. Du Shanwen waved his sword. Du Shanwen blocked Mao Ichio behind him. Li Er slowly pulled out his sword from the sheath and said with a smile, Du Shanwen, you should know that even though we are all on the 8th level of the Spirit Emperor realm, there is still a gap between us. You are the only one here who can fight with us. As for the two behind you, they are only in the 8th level of the Spirit Emperor realm. How can they fight with us? I only know that this is not what we agreed on at the beginning. Du Shengwen roared. He waved his sword and saber, blocking Yin Shuangfei and Li Er's attacks. Wang Hai and Mao Ichio, who had just returned, attacked Yin Shuangfei and Li Er from the left and right respectively. The fierce battle between the 5 of them began. Behind the boulder, Yi Hao, who was about to rush out, sat down silently. Yu Sanjiang was surprised. I didn't expect that those guys would start fighting among themselves before we even made a move. This is really a surprise. Then let them fight first. When they are tired, we will finish them off. Yi Hao put his flying sword back into his sleeve and watched the battle quietly. Okay. Yu Sanjiang also put down the 3-foot-long sword in his hand. Outside the arena, in the audience, Bing Yi looked at the red light pillar that was getting closer and closer. She suddenly stood up and murmured, So soon? Wu Wenyong also stood up and asked, Bing Yi, what's wrong? Bing Yi looked at Wu Wenyong and said seriously, Wenyong, I have to go. Go. Where are you going? Bing Yi smiled and said, My family sent someone to pick me up. I have to go home. Wu Wenyong thought of Bing Yi's deep cultivation and mysterious identity. Then he understood. He smiled and asked, So soon? I thought I could stay with you for a few more days. At least until the 3rd high school comes out. Bing Yi looked at the sky and said sadly, I'm afraid it's too late. Bing Yi walked out of the audience and walked towards the street. Wu Wenyong hurriedly chased after her and shouted at her back, Bing Yi, are you leaving just like that? Don't you have any words for the 3rd high school? Hearing this, Bing Yi stopped in her tracks and was stunned. Then Bing Yi turned around and said, Help me pass a message to the 3rd high school. Tell them to meet me at the alley where I bought snacks. See you there. After saying that, Bing Yi turned around and left. Wu Wenyong looked at Bing Yi's blurry back and clenched his fists. Then, he turned around and left the street. He left Qingshan District and went straight to Green Fallen Peak. Bing Yi left the street and went to the street where she bought snacks with Yi Hao. She realized that the old man who sold snacks was no longer there. Hence, she found a tea shop and sat down quietly. Just as Bing Yi sat down, a swordsman in black with a sword appeared in front of her. Then, dozens of red figures descended from the sky. One of the masked men in red wanted to go forward, but was stopped by the swordsman in black. Bing Yi said calmly, Uncle Black, let him in. After the masked man came to the tea shop, he knelt down on one knee and said respectfully, Princess, His Majesty ordered me to bring you back. Got it. Then, shall we set off now? I'm waiting for someone. Princess. Suddenly, a cold light appeared in front of the masked man. The swordsman in blue held a long sword and said coldly, Princess said that she's waiting for someone. All right, Uncle Blue, don't make things difficult for him. Hearing this, the swordsman in blue kept his long sword and stood quietly at the side. Bing Yi looked at the masked man and said, Don't worry. Tomorrow morning, whether the person I'm waiting for appears or not, I'll leave with you. Yes. Then, the masked man waved his hand, and the others quickly surrounded the shop. The owner of the tea shop was so scared that he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. In the end, the swordsman in blue took out a space ring and bought the tea shop. Only then did the owner leave in a hurry. The swordsman in blue came to Bing Yi's side and said, "That Wu Wenyong is heading towards Qing Luo Peak now. Aren't you afraid that he won't send a message to Yi Sangao?" "He won't," Bing Yi said firmly. The swordsman in blue shrugged and said, "Didn't you tell him about Wu Wenyong's identity?" Bing Yi said self-deprecatingly, "I've already left. Do you want Wu Wenyong to leave him too? Will he be able to take it?" Then Bing Yi looked into the distance. That was where Yi Hao was participating in the competition. Chapter 1470. In the depths of the cave, the battle between Yin Shuangfei and the other four had reached its climax. Each of them had used their special skills and were ready to decide the victor. The people who were in the middle of the battle also fell into a pool of blood one by one. Their eyes were still filled with doubt even before they died. 10,000 divine, heavenly technique. Wang Hai roared. His body was suddenly surrounded by many lightning bolts. He clenched his fists and lightning flashed. Ancient Pine, Imperial Tao. Mao Ichio spread out his hands, and an ancient path shining with golden light appeared around him. Myriad blades and swords. Compared to the techniques of the previous two, Du Shunwen's technique was much simpler. It was still just a blade and a sword. However, tens of thousands of swords and sabers appeared behind him. What a showy thing. I don't care what you are. I'll break it with one slash. Yin Shuangfei didn't care about the purple lightning and the golden path. He attacked with his blade in both hands. Bang! The golden path was actually split in half by Yin Shuangfei's long blade. However, Mao Ichio quickly recovered from his shock and used the broken path to continuously harass Yin Shuangfei. Mao Ichio, who held lightning in both hands, became the main force attacking Yin Shuangfei. When one punch failed, another followed. Lightning flashed, and thunder roared, and lightning flashed in all directions. However, he still couldn't injure Yin Shuangfei. While the battle here was in full swing, the other side wasn't idle either. Du Shangwen, who used both blade and sword, became more and more courageous as the battle went on. Li Er, who was quite accomplished in the way of the sword, also didn't fall behind. The two were in a deadlock. Now, it was time to see who would be the first to break the deadlock. Yi Hao and Mao Ichio, who had been hiding behind a huge rock, were also looking for an opportunity to enter the battle. Finally, Yin Shuangfei revealed an opening. Yu Sanjiang, who had been waiting for a long time, couldn't help but make a move. Then, Yi Hao attacked Wang Hai and Mao Ichio with his Maidao sword. When Yin Shuangfei faced Wang Hai and Yu Sanjiang's attack head-on, he exposed his defenseless back. Yu Sanjiang, who had been accumulating power for a long time, naturally wouldn't let go of this great opportunity. He thrust the 3-foot-long sword in his hand forward with all his might. Puchi! Yin Shuangfei's defenseless back was attacked. Dark red blood slowly dripped down the 3-foot-long sword. When Wang Hai and Mao Ichio saw this, they were overjoyed. Just as they were about to beat the dog in the water, they were awakened by Yin Shuangfei's words. After being attacked, Yin Shuangfei stabbed backwards with his blade. Yu Sanjiang slightly retreated and also pulled out his 3-foot-long sword. Yin Shuangfei shouted at Wang Hai and Mao Ichio who were about to attack him. "Idiots, someone wants to be the last Oriole. Can't you see it?" Hearing this, Wang Hai and Mao Ichio stopped their attacks and glared at Yu Sanjiang with Yin Shuangfei. Yu Sanjiang shrugged and looked at them with a smile on his face. On the other side, Yi Hao, who was following closely behind Yu Sanjiang, directly slashed at Li Er's back with his Wu Dao sword. Du Shangwen, who had quick reflexes, directly swung his blade at the defenseless Li Er. Then, he swung his sword forward and blocked Yi Hao's full force attack. At the same time, his whole body was hit by the huge impact and slammed into a wall not far away. Li Er, who was swung away by the blade, also did not feel good. His face was pale as he clutched his injured shoulder. Yi Hao held his sword with one hand and waved his left hand. Several small, flying swords flew out from Li Er's shoulder and circled around his palm. "Who are you?" Li Er's expression was somewhat gloomy as he looked at Yi Hao and Yi Shiwen. Originally, They had wanted to be fishermen who reaped the benefits. However, it seemed that some of them hadn't been fooled. Instead, they wanted to be the Oriole in the end. People who have been deceived by your trap. Yihao looked at them with a smile. In the distance, Du Shangwen, who was patting the dust off his body, walked over and looked at the two with disdain. A 7th-level Spirit Emperor and a 5th-level Spirit Emperor. You want to snatch food from the tiger's mouth? You overestimate yourselves. Yin Shuangfei, who was holding his blade with both hands, laughed ferociously. Damn it, you dare to sneak attack me. Don't worry, I won't let you die so quickly. I will slowly torture you and make you wish you were dead. You are Yu Sanjiang? Mao Ichio looked at Yu Sanjiang, who was holding a 3-foot-long sword, and was slightly surprised. TSK. Instead of being a good young master of the Yu family, you came here to die with a 5th-level Spirit Emperor. I really don't know what you're thinking. Wang Hai put his hands together, and a huge purple thunderball slowly formed behind him. Yihao still had a smile on his face. He looked at everyone and said, Everyone, are you done saying your last words? Everyone was stunned. What an arrogant tone. A mere 5th-level Spirit Emperor. He really didn't know what was good for him. Yihao looked at the 5 people who were silent. He slowly lowered his body and knelt on one knee. He said softly, Since you have nothing to say, then please die. Buzz. Yihao inserted a spiritual stone with an array on it into the ground. Suddenly, the whole cave began to shake violently. Then, the ghost array in the cave underwent a huge change. A lot of fog suddenly appeared under everyone's feet. Soon, there was only a vast expanse of white in front of them. Although the 5 people were standing very close to each other, they still couldn't see each other's figures. They couldn't help but panic. Don't panic. Du Shangwen carefully sensed the flowing spiritual energy on the mountain wall. He said in a low voice, This kid changed the original operation of the ghost array and turned the original array core into a new ghost array. Now, although we don't know where the array core is and can't break the ghost array for the time being, his strength is not as good as ours. Let's not panic. Among the 5 people, Du Shangwen was quite knowledgeable about ghost arrays. The ghost array in the cave that was originally used to confuse people was also set up by him. However, he didn't expect Yihao's ghost array to be even better than his. Not only could he see through the ghost array, he could even change the original operation of the ghost array. Ah, there's someone. Suddenly, Wang Hai's scream came from behind Du Shangwen. Bah, despicable person. At this time, Mao Ichio's angry shout came from the front left. Bastard! How dare you sneak attack me? This time, it was Yin Shuangfei's angry shout from the front right. Brat, eat my sword. The sound of Li Er unsheathing his sword came from the back left of Du Shangwen. Du Shangwen froze in place. He suddenly had a headache. What was going on? Apart from him, were the other 4 people attacked? At this time, a cold light suddenly appeared behind him. Du Shangwen didn't dare to be careless. He hurriedly used both his sword and saber to stab forward. The person attacking from behind used a purple lightning ball to block in front of him. When their spiritual energies collided, the two recognized each other and hurriedly pulled back. Before the two could speak, there was a shattering sound not far away. The two of them had serious expressions as they ran toward the source of the sound. As soon as they got close, they saw Yihao, holding the Wu Dao sword, place the scarlet sword in his hand not far from Mao Ichio's chest. In order to save his life, Mao Ichio hurriedly handed over the battle token in his hand and disappeared. Chapter 1471. Wang Hai looked at the broken golden path around him. His eyes were red as he roared and rushed forward. Yihao smiled brightly. Instead of advancing, he retreated, his aura sword, and reached the 6th level of the Spirit Emperor realm. Not far away, Yin Shuangfei and Li Er stood back to back and looked around vigilantly. They didn't dare to be careless. Just now, when Yihao and Yu Sanjiang attacked together, the two of them didn't care. They thought they could easily deal with them, but they ended up being seriously injured. It wasn't that they were weak, but that the ghost boundary blocked their vision. They were in the light, and the enemy was in the dark. It was impossible to guard against them. Yu Sanjiang, come out if you have the guts. You're the young master of the Yu family. Hiding like this doesn't suit your status. Come out. Let's talk things over. If you catch that brat with us, we'll give you a share of the battle tokens. Huh? Yu Sanjiang sneered. He held his 3-foot-long sword and aimed it at Yin Shuangfei's shoulder. Yin Shuangfei sneered. He didn't dodge, but let Yu Sanjiang's sword pierce through his shoulder. Then he stretched out his left hand and grabbed the sword tightly, not letting Yu Sanjiang retreat. Yu Sanjiang was slightly stunned. Then Li Er appeared behind him. Yin Shuangfei sneered and roared, Li Er, now is the time. Kill this brat for me. An ominous premonition arose within Yu Sanjiang's heart. Hastily, he abandoned the long sword in his hand and frantically dodged. However, Li Er's sword was still one step faster than his figure. Immediately, a series of blood droplets appeared in the air. Yu Sanjiang covered his injured chest and leaned against the wall. Suddenly, he found that the spiritual stone that Yi Hao gave him broke into 2 halves. Then, the surrounding fog slowly dispersed, revealing the original appearance of the cave, as well as everyone's figures. Yi Hao, who was fighting fiercely with Wang Hai, felt his eyes twitch. He shouted in his heart, "Oh no, the spirit stones have shattered and the formation has been broken. We have to end this quickly." Fourth sword, Phoenix Cry. With a low shout, the Mai Dao sword shone with a bright red light. For fiery red, phoenixes slowly rose from behind him. With the point of his sword, the 4 phoenixes rushed to attack Du Shengwen, who was holding 2 swords in his hands. Then, the Wu Dao sword turned in the air and returned to Yi Hao's hand. He said softly, "Wang Hai, this sword will grant you eternal life." Sword 5, Phoenix Flames. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host for executing the 4th and 5th moves of the Phoenix Dance of the 9 Heavens. The reward is 1 general summoning token. Du Shengwen was very calm, facing Sword 4, who only had the battle prowess of 6th level Spirit Emperor. But Wang Hai, who was facing Sword 5, was much more frightened in comparison. Because the 5 phoenixes did not seem to be illusions. There was a figure standing on the forehead of the phoenixes. That figure stood proudly, and a majestic aura slowly bloomed from his body. Wang Hai, who was unwilling to admit defeat, put his hands together again. The huge thunderball and the phoenixes collided in the air. After the smoke dissipated, a sword shadow, flashing with red light, directly pierced his body. Wang Hai looked in disbelief at Yi Hao, who was slowly panting in front of him, and died with his eyes open. Wonderful! There was a burst of applause behind Yi Hao. Yi Hao pulled out his sword and turned around, panting heavily. Du Shengwen looked at the already tired Yi Hao and said, "These 2 moves of yours must have consumed a lot of your spiritual energy. Do you think it's necessary to continue fighting with me now?" "Who said so?" Yi Hao sneered. Suddenly, all the corpses in the cave turned into balls of spiritual energy and slowly floated into the air. Before the spiritual energy disappeared, each of them separated into a ball of spiritual energy and slowly merged into Yi Hao and Yu Sanjiang, who was leaning against the wall and resting not far away. Du Shengwen, Yin Shuangfei, and Li Er's faces all darkened. What's going on? Why would they also turn into spiritual energy after death and disappear into the air? What's even more frightening is that these 2 guys can actually absorb a part of it. It's simply unbelievable. Yi Hao and Yin Shuangfei looked at each other and smiled, their auras rising together. The difference was that the spiritual energy in Yi Hao's body only recovered to its peak state, while Yu Sanjiang used this spiritual energy to step into the 8th level Spirit Emperor. Feeling the majestic spiritual energy in his body, Yu Sanjiang laughed and directly attacked Yin Shuangfei and Li Er. Yin Shuangfei and Li Er used their sword and saber to block together, but they could only try their best to remain undefeated under Yu Sanjiang's fists. It was not so easy to win. You clearly had the chance to save Wang Hai, but you still watched him die under my sword. Now it seems that you're not a person who follows the rules. Yi Hao slowly walked closer with his Wu Dao sword. Du Shengwen sneered and replied, I have never broken the rules. It's just that they are too weak. You can't blame me for this. As for you, you were the first in the list at the beginning, so you must have a lot of battle orders. Hand over the battle order, and I can let you go. How about it? Really? Of course. I'm not Yin Shuangfei. As long as you hand over the battle order, I will let you live. Very good. Yi Hao suddenly began to exert his strength and said loudly, Just because of your words, I must give you a quick death today. Haha. Du Shengwen was not afraid at all and retorted, What a joke. You, a 6th-level spirit emperor, want to take my life? I am not Wang Hai or Maui Chiu. You're simply dreaming. Yi Hao waved his left hand, and a medicinal pill appeared in his hand. After taking the medicinal pill, Yi Hao's aura suddenly began to soar. He easily broke through the 6th-level Spirit Emperor and reached the 7th-level Spirit Emperor. Yu Mansion in the bamboo forest. Seeing Yi Hao break through 2 realms in a row, Banished Immortal exclaimed, This kid, he broke through again? On the side, Yuing Wan frowned and said, No, it shouldn't be a breakthrough. Generally speaking, there will be a process of accumulation before breaking through. When this accumulation reaches the peak, it will completely explode and break through. Sanjiang is like this. However, this Yi Sengeo's strength increased without any signs. I think he must have borrowed some external force. External force? That's right. Yuing Wan had the strength of a half-step Spirit Emperor. He naturally could tell at a glance whether Yi Hao had broken through or not. Thus, he continued, It is a medicinal pill that can increase one's battle strength for a short period of time. Yi Sangao must have taken something like this. So it is like this. Banished Immortal's shock turned into joy and said, I knew it. This kid just broke through to the 6th level with the help of Young Master's Jade Buddha Stone. How could he break through to the 7th level so quickly? Unless he is a genius. That's right. However, even a genius might not have this strength. Yuing Wan also agreed. If they knew that the 7th level Spirit Emperor was Yi Hao's true strength, what kind of expression would they have? The 2 months of hellish cultivation were not in vain. Chapter 1472. Ever since Yi Hao reached the 7th level of the Spirit Emperor realm, he had been hiding his true strength. Even Wu Wenyong and Bing, they did not know of Yi Hao's true strength. It wasn't that Yi Hao wanted to hide anything. It was just that in a place like the Imperial City of Azure Mountain, it was better to keep a low profile. The less people could see through him, the better. If he really did reveal all his trump cards, Yi Hao wouldn't be far from death. After all, the Yuan clan had the Celestial Cloud Pavilion, so Yi Hao had to be cautious. This was also why Zhou Tong was so shocked when he saw Yi Hao's true strength. In the trial, Yi Hao revealed his cultivation as a 6th-level Spirit Emperor for 2 reasons. One was to let Yuan Shu and the rest assured that he had used the Jade Buddha Stone that they gave him and had used it to break through. The other reason was to increase his strength on the surface and have more means to protect himself. As for the pill that he had just taken, it was actually just an ordinary healing pill. It was not a pill that could suddenly increase his cultivation. As for the reason for doing so, it was naturally to cover up his sudden increase in strength. Yi Hao, whose strength had increased sharply, attacked with his sword. Du Shengwen's sword and saber crossed in front of his chest and was directly sent flying by Yi Hao. Yi Hao, who had succeeded in one strike, did not keep his sword. Instead, he chased after Du Shengwen. Sword Qi wantonly bloomed in the cave one after another. The entire cave fell into a chaotic battle, not only in the cave, but also in other places in the world of Warcraft. For the battle order, in order to advance, in order to go further in the Heavenly Street Convention, everyone was doing their best. Green Fallen Peak, Celestial Cloud Pavilion. In a secret room in Yuan Shu's courtyard, a figure with a hurried expression quietly walked in. After entering the secret room, the figure arrived in front of Yuan Shu with ease. Yuan Shu was staring at a projection on the left. That projection was showing the scene of Yi Hao fighting fiercely. After that figure came, he did not speak and just stood there quietly. After a long while, Yuan Shu lazily said, "Why are you here? Didn't I tell you not to come if I don't contact you? I've already told you this when you first entered the city. Have you forgotten?" "I haven't forgotten." The figure slowly raised her head. She stared at Yuan Shu with her beautiful eyes and said, "You told me to stay by his side and investigate his situation. I did as you said. When will you fulfill your promise?" Yuan Shu glanced at him and said with a smile, "Don't worry, the fish has only taken the bait. It hasn't fallen into the net yet. But if we want to catch the fish, we can't do it without you." "What exactly do you want me to do?" "You'll know when the time comes. It's not the right time yet. When I first entered the city, I came to find you and told you that he was a 5th-level spirit emperor, but you didn't believe me and sent people to test him. Since you don't trust me, why did you let me stay by his side?" Yuan Shu stood up with a smile, walked up to the figure, and slapped him. Bang! The figure crashed into the wall not far away. Yuan Shu turned around and said with his hands behind his back, "Watch your attitude when talking to me." The figure stood up silently and walked behind Yuan Shu. Her red eyes were filled with hatred. "It's not that I don't trust you, but I'm afraid that this brat is hiding something from you. What is his exact realm? This is an important piece of information that I must know. That's why I sent people to test him. I didn't expect that woman beside him to interfere. That woman will leave tomorrow morning. She won't hinder your plan." Yuan Shu's face lit up. "Really?" The figure nodded and said, "Yes. She also told me to tell him that we'll meet one last time in an alley in the city. Do you need me to do anything?" Yuan Shu's eyes kept darting around. He said carefully, "No need. You can't expose yourself for now. Just tell him what I said. Tell that woman to leave as soon as possible. It'll be troublesome if she stays." "Got it. If there's nothing else, I'll go back." "Wait." Yuan Shu stopped the figure and said seriously, "Don't worry. When this is done, I'll do what I promised you. I won't go back on my words." "I hope so." Yuan Shu watched Wu Wenyang's departing figure with a playful smile on his face. Then, a black figure appeared beside him. Yuan Shu smiled and asked, "Ing Yi, how's the monster?" Ing Yi said with a hoarse voice, "Everything is going according to our plan. I believe it won't be long before it returns to its peak." "Very good." Yuan Shu smiled and turned around. He looked at the 6 projections on the wall and said with a sinister smile, "Haha, I won't take the Yuan family's things for free. Since I've helped you, I naturally have to leave something behind." In Yuan Mu's residence, Yuan Mu listened to the bronze man's report quietly and frowned. "That woman is accompanied by 2 swordsmen, one in black and one in blue. Furthermore, there are a group of masked men in crimson robes guarding her. Her identity is indeed extraordinary." The man in the bronze mask revealed the information he had gathered in full detail. Yuan Mu put down the brush in his hand and said, "Listening to the clothes of those guards and that woman's age, it reminds me of an empire. However, those people shouldn't be here. Then could they have the same goal as us? Probably not." Yuan Mu waved his hand and said, "Only we know that secret. They shouldn't be here for that. According to the current situation of the Chaos Realm, they should be here to take that woman away. Then what should we do? Do nothing. Wait. Yes." In the cave, the walls were broken and the ground was in a mess. Yi Hao, who was injured all over and unable to move, and Yu Sanjiang, who had a sword wound and a blade wound on his chest, leaned against the wall and gasped for breath. Not far from them, there were 3 people kneeling. One was the pale-faced Lier, whose arm had been cut off by Yu Sanjiang's 3-foot-long sword. One was the half-unconscious Du Shanwen, who had been heavily injured by Yi Hao. One was the Yin Shuangfei, who had a crimson sword and a slender soft sword on his back. Only the sound of his heartbeat could be heard. At this moment, the 3 of them no longer had the demeanor of spirit emperors. They also didn't have the courage to tell Yi Hao and Yu Sanjiang to die. They were like 3 wooden stakes kneeling on the ground. In front of them were the battle tokens they had just taken out. The moment the 3 of them placed the battle tokens on the ground, they were sent to the entrance of the competition by 3 pillars of light. There were 2 distinctive swords stuck in the ground of the cave, as if to prove Yi Hao and Yu Sanjiang's victory. Chapter 1473. Yi Hao raised his arm with great difficulty. The Crimson Wu Dao sword was quietly lying in Yi Hao's interspatial ring. At the same time, the slender and long sword also returned to Yu Sanjiang's hands. Yi Hao said weakly, "We won the bet." Yu Sanjiang only felt bitterness in his heart, but this was a Pyrrhic victory. Moreover, we took so many battle tokens. Aren't we the prey of others? It's okay. We'll be fine after a few days. Yi Hao's chest suddenly tightened, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Yu Sanjiang rested for a while and recovered some of his strength. He picked up all the battle orders that he had left behind in the cave. Then, he came to Yi Hao's side and split the battle orders in half. He smiled and said, "We'll split the battle orders in half." Yi Hao was stunned and looked at him blankly. Yu Sanjiang didn't understand. "Are you stupid? You don't want them? If you don't want them, I'll take them all." Yi Hao swallowed his saliva and said helplessly, "Look at the ranking." Yu Sanjiang opened the battle tokens and opened the ranking. He was at the top, and the biggest red dot on the map was him. He couldn't help but panic. Yi Hao smiled bitterly. "Can't you just let those battle tokens lie on the ground quietly? We'll take them later." Yi Hao reluctantly took half of the battle tokens. At this time, the ranking changed again. First place, Yi Sangao, 6th level Spirit Emperor, 123,800 battle tokens. Second place, Yu Sanjiang, 8th level Spirit Emperor, 115,521 battle tokens. Wang, congratulations to Yi Sangao and Yu Sanjiang for breaking through 100,000 battle tokens and unlocking the reconnaissance function. From now on, the two of you can scout the location of others within 30 kilometers of you. In the bamboo forest of the Yu Manor, Banished Immortal looked at Yu Yingwan with some displeasure. Exiled Immortal took a sip of tea and said in a somewhat reproachful tone, "Patriarch Yu, what do you mean by this? You're breaking the rules." Yu Yingwan smiled and said, "Fallen Immortal, isn't this rule set by us? If we want to change it, then we can naturally change it. Moreover, don't you think this is very interesting?" Exiled Immortal was speechless. Yu Yingwan said in his heart, "Sanjiang, Father can only help you this much. The rest is up to you." Inside the cave, Yi Hao and Yu Sanjiang were stunned by this sudden turn of events. Yi Hao was stunned for a moment, then said, "Doesn't that mean we can see how many people are chasing after us?" "Yeah," Yu Sanjiang added. "This way, we can also use this function to kill others and earn more battle tokens." The two of them were overjoyed. Then, they opened the map on the battle tokens, and their faces darkened. This was because they found that there were hundreds of small green dots around the two largest red dots on the map. Moreover, these small dots were constantly moving towards the two large red dots, gradually forming an encirclement. "Damn, why are there so many people here? What should we do? I don't want to die. We just got so many battle tokens. I don't want to give them away for nothing." Yu Sanjiang suddenly panicked. Now that the two of them were seriously injured, they definitely couldn't win against so many people. However, he didn't want to give up the opportunity to advance, so he was very conflicted. Yi Hao thought carefully, then took out a pile of spirit stones from his interspatial ring and said, "I have a way, but I just took a pill and went through a fierce battle. Now my body is a little weak. I need you to help me." At the entrance of the cave, a lot of people suddenly gathered. These people looked at the map and confirmed that the two largest red dots were in the cave. Then they swarmed in. "These two guys are not very strong. We can easily defeat them." "That's right. They have 200,000 battle tokens together. It's enough for us to divide." "Haha, this is what they mean by an innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. Damn it." Inside the cave, Yu Sanjiang, who was arranging the spirit stones on the ground according to Yi Hao's instructions, became more and more anxious. This was because he could hear many messy footsteps slowly approaching. If this spiritual array was not set up, it would really be over. Yi Hao also heard the messy footsteps, but he didn't panic. Instead, he said in a low voice, "Don't panic. Just a little more, and this spiritual array will be set up. You must focus now. Don't put the spirit stones in the wrong place. Otherwise, all our previous efforts will be wasted." Okay. Yu Sanjiang took the scattered spirit stones on the ground and slowly embedded them into the ground. At this time, everyone had already reached the depths of the cave. When they saw Yi Hao leaning against the wall and Yu Sanjiang, who was randomly placing things on the ground, they smiled maliciously. They're over there, and they're both injured. This is a heaven-sent opportunity. That's right. The battle tokens are ours. Let's go. Everyone was like a pack of hungry wolves who saw two fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered. They rushed forward, wanting to tear Yi Hao and Yu Sanjiang into pieces. Okay. The last spirit stone is set up. Yu Sanjiang hurriedly inserted the last spirit stone in his hand into the ground and said anxiously, "It's done. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and help me over there." Yi Hao said resentfully. Yu Sanjiang, who finally reacted, hurriedly helped Yi Hao to the place where the spiritual array was set up. Yi Hao looked at everyone close to him. He took out a spirit stone and slammed it heavily on the ground. Suddenly, a dazzling white light lit up the cave. The white light was so dazzling that everyone couldn't open their eyes. They hurriedly covered their eyes with their arms. When the cave returned to normal, Yi Hao and Yu Sanjiang were no longer in the same place. Then, a series of angry roars came from the cave. Yi Hao and Yu Sanjiang only felt dizzy. Then, they appeared beside a small river. Yu Sanjiang shook his dizzy head. Not only did the people who tore them apart disappear, but there was also a river. He asked doubtfully, "This isn't the cave. Brother Yi, where are we?" Yi Hao said weakly, "This is the place where I entered the world of Warcraft. When I first came in, I was careful and left a teleportation formation beside the river. The spiritual array I asked you to set up in the cave is connected to this place. As long as the spiritual array is activated, we will be teleported here. However, it can only be activated once, so you don't have to worry about those people chasing after us for the time being." "I see." Yu Sanjiang suddenly understood. Just as he was about to ask a few more questions, Yi Hao had already fainted. Yu Sanjiang came to Yi Hao's side and carried Yi Hao to a big tree. Then, he sat down with a hesitant expression. Then, Yu Sanjiang slapped himself with all his strength. He muttered angrily and leaned against the big tree to sleep. At the same time, the few flying swords floating quietly in Yi Hao's right hand also quietly flew back into his sleeve. Chapter 1474. The sun had just risen, and the golden sunlight shone on the river not far away. The golden light was dazzling and dazzling. Yi Hao, who was leaning against a big tree, covered his eyes with his arms and said lazily, "Today's weather is good." Yu Sanjiang, who was looking at the map beside him, said helplessly, "You still have the time to care about the weather? My goodness, you have been sleeping for a day and a night. You finally woke up. If you didn't wake up, I would have left you behind." I accidentally overslept." Yi Hao touched his head awkwardly and said, "Why? We have been through thick and thin together. How can you leave me behind like this? Can you live with your conscience?" Yu Sanjiang smiled bitterly and put the map in front of Yi Hao. The two largest red dots on the map were surrounded by many small green dots. Some were near and some were far away, and they were all gradually coming toward the river. Yu Sanjiang took back the map and said, "Now many people see us as fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered. Do you think I should leave?" Yi Hao stood up and stretched. He said with a smile, "After sleeping for a day and a night, my spirit is really different. The injuries on my body are almost healed. Sangao, since your injuries are almost healed, let's go quickly. It will be too late if we are late. Go? Where do you think we can go?" Yu Sanjiang thought carefully and sighed. He said helplessly, "You are right. Our position is transparent to others. It is the same no matter where we go." "No." Yi Hao smiled brightly and retorted, "Although our position is transparent, it doesn't mean that it is the same everywhere." Yu Sanjiang suddenly became interested. He looked at Yi Hao and asked, "Sangao, what's your idea? Let's hear it." "Brother Yu, there are still a few days before the end of the competition. Do you want to do something big with me?" Yu Sanjiang's eyes lit up. They looked at each other and giggled by the river with a pile of spiritual stones in their arms. In the Green Mountain district of the imperial city of Green Mountain. In the alley, Bing Yi walked into the tea shop and stared at the tea on the table in a daze. At this moment, the blue-clothed swordsman came to Bing Yi's side and said softly, "There are already a few groups of people watching nearby. Are you sure you don't want to chase them away?" Bing Yi shook his head and said, "There's no need for that. If they want to watch, let them watch." "Yes. By the way, a few hours have passed." The blue-clothed swordsman looked at the time and replied, 10 hours have passed since the beginning. You should be out in another 10 hours. There are still 10 hours left. It feels like time flies." Bing Yi looked at the tea on the table and suddenly asked, "Uncle Lon, do you think I will see him in 10 hours or tomorrow morning?" The blue-clothed swordsman was silent. Bing Yi asked again, "Uncle Lon, do you think you will successfully advance?" The blue-clothed swordsman remained silent. Bing Yi suddenly thought of something and asked, "By the way, his cultivation is only at the 5th level of the Spirit Emperor realm. I don't think he can win." The blue-clothed swordsman looked at Bing Yi's distracted appearance and sighed in his heart. He turned his head away and couldn't bear to watch anymore. Time passed slowly like this. Wu Wenyong, who had returned to the spectator seats, looked at the screen in the center of the arena. His depressed mood was swept away and turned into a smile. The screen was showing the magnificent feat of Yi Sangao and Yu Sanjiang teaming up to defeat 100 Spirit Emperor realm cultivators. Seeing Yi Sangao's complete victory, Wu Wenyong couldn't help but feel happy for him. Just as he wanted to share this joy with others, he looked at the empty seat at the side and his expression inadvertently dimmed. He looked at Yi Sangao in a daze. In a world where demonic beasts ran rampant, Yi Hao, who was dragging the Wu Dao sword, and Yu Sanjiang, who was holding a 3-foot-long sword, looked at the battle orders on the ground and laughed. Just now, they used Yi Hao's rich knowledge of spiritual arrays to set up many spiritual arrays. Then, the two of them teamed up to defeat the cultivators who were trapped in the spiritual arrays. The battle orders on the ground were the best proof. Yu Sanjiang sat on the ground and breathed heavily. He smiled and said, "Brother Yi, I didn't expect you to know so many spiritual arrays and have so many spiritual stones with you." Yi Hao also sat on the ground and replied with a smile, "There is no harm in having more skills. My cultivation is only at the 5th level of the Spirit Emperor realm. If I don't know some spiritual arrays, how can I protect myself in this world where demonic beasts run rampant? As for these spiritual arrays, they're necessary for us spiritual array masters." Then, Yi took out a black pill and handed it to Yu Sanjiang. Looking at the pill in a daze, Yu Sanjiang asked, "What is this?" "This is a 4th-grade healing pill. Take it, put away the battle order, and leave as soon as possible. We can't afford to fight for a while." After taking the pill, Yu Sanjiang felt his wounds were much better. "I didn't expect Brother Yi to have such a good thing with you," he said in surprise. Yi Hao put away the battle order on the ground and said, "To tell you the truth, I'm also an alchemist, but my state is not high. The pill I just took was given to me by my teacher." "You're really good. I didn't expect you to have so many identities." Hee hee. There's no harm in having more skills. After cleaning up the battlefield, the two of them left and started to set up the spiritual arrays for the next battle. On the Green Peak, in the royal palace of Green Mountain, a middle-aged man with a hurried expression passed through the magnificent Grand Hall and came to the Preservation Hall, where the Emperor of Green Mountain resided. He knocked on the door gently and walked in reverently after getting permission. In the innermost part of the Grand Hall, there was a bed made of spiritual stones. On the bed, a white-haired old man was sleeping. Beside the old man sat a young woman with a delicate figure and a haggard face. The young woman looked at the old man, who was sometimes unconscious and sometimes awake, her eyes full of worry. There were many eunuchs and palace maids kneeling around them. The middle-aged man came to the side of the bed and knelt down, saying respectfully, "This subject, Yuchi Wei, greets your majesty and princess." The young woman, with tear stains on her face, hurriedly got up and helped the middle-aged man up. She said softly, "Uncle Yuchi, there's no need to be so courteous. Get up and talk." "Thank you, Your Highness." The middle-aged man called Yuchi Wei stood up and looked at the unconscious old man on the bed. "Your Highness, how is His Majesty?" he asked. The young woman stroked her hair and said worriedly, "He is still the same as before. He is sometimes awake and sometimes unconscious. In the past, he was awake most of the time, but now he is unconscious most of the time. I'm afraid, Princess, be careful with your words." Yuchi Wei looked at the people around and reminded her. Chapter 1475. The young woman also reacted. She looked at the palace maids and eunuchs and said, "You all can leave." "Yes." The palace maids and eunuchs got up and slowly left the hall. When only Yuchi Wei, the princess, and the unconscious Green Mountain Emperor remained in the hall, Yuchi Wei said, "Princess, there are too many people in the Hall of Preservation. It's best if Princess is more careful when speaking." Thinking about this, the young woman was a bit angry and said angrily, "Recently, the Yuan family and Qing family have become more and more excessive. Not only have they placed their own confidence in the Hall of Preservation, they even have eyes and ears in my residence." Yuchi Wei advised, "Princess, please calm down. As long as His Majesty recovers and wakes up, the Yuan family and Qing family are nothing to be afraid of." Sigh, if only I had a few royal brothers. Yuchi Wei fell into silence when he heard this. The Qingshan Emperor was a womanizer, so he had countless beauties in his harem. However, for some reason, even though he had many women, he only had one child, and that was the princess of the Qingshan Empire, Ling Junyan. It was strange. If a powerful empire didn't have a successor for a long time, it should have fallen into chaos long ago. However, the Qingshan Empire didn't. Not only did it not fall into chaos, but it also became more and more prosperous. This was all because of the Qingshan Emperor's suppression. The Qingshan Emperor's martial strength was outstanding, and he was one of the few spirit emperor powerhouses in the Qingshan Empire. He had fought countless battles and killed countless people. Very few people dared to go against him and form factions. Therefore, although the Qingshan Empire only had one princess, it was still stable and powerful. That was until the ancestral worship 10 years ago. There were 7 great clans in the Qingshan Empire. Because they each guarded a spirit vein, the leaders of the 7 great clans would bring their closest people to the depths of the spirit vein to worship their ancestors during the ancestral worship ceremony that was held once every 10 years. However, after the ancestral worship 10 years ago, the leaders of the 7 great clans were all bedridden when they returned. There are even some who passed away a day after returning. This bizarre incident led to countless guesses, and at the same time, countless rumors erupted. Some said that the Qingshan Emperor had set up a trap to get rid of the other 6 great clans, but he was seen through. Some said that the 6 great clans had set up a trap to get rid of the Qingshan Emperor. The 6 great clans were in power, but the Qingshan Emperor was too powerful and was able to escape. Some even said that the Qingshan Emperor wanted the leaders of the great clans to send their wives and daughters to the palace. The leaders didn't agree, so a war broke out. Both sides suffered heavy losses. No matter what the truth, the Qingshan Emperor was bedridden. The Ling clan's emperor's might was getting, and gradually, the Yuan and Qing clans took control of the court. Yuchi Wei thought of these past events. He couldn't help but feel sorrowful. Ling Junyan broke the silence in the hall and asked Yuchi Wei, "Uncle Yuchi, how is the Heavenly Street Convention going?" Yuchi Wei broke free from his memories and said, "Right now, the first round of the Heavenly Street Convention is about to end. This is the list of the top 4 people in the 6 venues. If nothing unexpected happens, this list should be the candidates for the second round." Ling Junyan took the list and murmured, "Most of the people on this list are from the 6 great clans. How come I don't see the people we sent out?" Thinking of this, Yuchi Wei said angrily, that Yuan clan's Immortal Cloud Pavilion actually found out who we sent out and then joined forces with other cultivators to kill all of our people. No one was able to break out. Preposterous. Ling Junyin was very angry, but he could only keep silent about the Yuan clan's actions. Soon after, he saw that there was one person on the list. Although he was only a 6th-stage Spirit Emperor, he had the most battle orders. He already had 150,000 battle orders. Ling Junyin pointed at this person and said, "Uncle Yuchi, who is this person? Although his cultivation is the lowest, he has the most battle orders." Yuchi Wei looked at those 3 words and murmured, "Yi San Gao. I've indeed paid attention to this person. Although his cultivation isn't high, he's very smart. He is indeed a talent." To be able to get Uncle Yuchi's praise, this person must be very good. Can we recruit this person for our use? This. Yuchi Wei revealed a difficult expression. "What's wrong?" Ling Junyin was confused. Yuchi Wei said, "This Yi San Gao. I reckon that the Yuan clan has already roped him in." "What? The Yuan clan again?" "That's right. This Yi San Gao was invited to the inner residence of the Yu clan by Yu Ingluan. Then, during this trial, he was inseparable from Yu Ingluan's son, Yu Sanjiang. As for the person behind the Yu clan, I'm sure Princess knows better than me." Immortal Cloud Pavilion, Yuan Shu. Ling Junyin looked at the list angrily. "Uncle Yuchi, is there no other way? After the Heaven Street Convention, it's time to worship the ancestors. The reason why Father has been in a coma for the past 10 years, what happened back then, and the ending of the 6 great clans will all be on that day. If we really can't recruit any talents, then it's a waste for us to worship the ancestors." Yuchi Wei took a step back and knelt on the ground. He said in a deep voice, "I'm incompetent. Please forgive me, Princess." Ling Junyin sighed and said helplessly, "Uncle Yuchi, I don't blame you. I'm a little tired. You can leave first." "I'll take my leave." Yuchi Wei stood up and respectfully left the hall. Before he left, he heard Ling Junyin's bitter sigh. Could it be that the heavens really want my Ling clan to die? Ling Junyin glanced at the empty hall and slowly paced around. In the end, she arrived beside the unconscious old man. She looked at the old man's white hair and her eyes glistened with tears. She sobbed, "Father, don't worry. I will definitely find out the truth of what happened back then. I will definitely cure you." Then, she wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and said in a low voice, "Little Jia, get ready." Suddenly, a figure wearing golden armor appeared in front of her and asked, "You're going to see that Yi San Gao?" "That's right." Ling Junyin stood up and murmured, "I have no other choice. Right now, I can only rely on myself. I always feel that this Yi San Gao is extraordinary, so no matter what, I have to try. Even if it's dangerous?" The man named Little Jia asked in a low voice. "Yes, even if it's dangerous." Ling Junyin's gaze was very firm. Chapter 1476. Under a waterfall, Yihao looked at the battle order in his hand while resisting the surging lake water above his head. He could not help but sneer. At the beginning, everyone thought that the 2 of them were 2 fat sheep waiting to be slaughtered, so they fought to be the first to hunt them down. When the first batch of people was wiped out by Yihao and Yu Sanjiang, no one cared. They thought that the 2 of them had hired help and played some tricks. It was just a fluke. But it was not until 2 more 100-person teams were wiped out that everyone realized that it was not luck at all. It was as if Yihao and Yu Sanjiang knew when they would appear and how many people would appear. They had set up an ambush and waited for them there. The roles of the hunter and the prey were completely reversed. By the time the 4th batch of people realized it, it was already too late. They were also wiped out by the 2 of them. In the end, a few more people broke through the 100,000 mark and unlocked the reconnaissance function. They started to hunt down the people in the vicinity. Only then did everyone understand how Yihao and Yu Sanjiang could know their information so accurately. Just like that, Yihao and Yu Sanjiang had more and more battle orders. They were already far ahead of the others on the leaderboard. Gradually, no one came to find trouble with the 2 of them. The 2 of them were happy to be free. Yu Sanjiang held a pile of wild fruits that he picked from somewhere and said to Yihao, It's been so boring recently. No one has come to find trouble with us. These idiots. They think that we are the prey. In fact, we have always been the hunters. Yihao caught the wild fruit that Yu Sanjiang threw over, took a bite, and sat up under the waterfall. Sigh, we can't blame them. After all, no one knew that there was such a crazy function like reconnaissance. Yeah, Yihao took a bite of the wild fruit and found that it tasted good. It also contained rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth. So he asked, "Where did you pick this fruit?" It contains rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It is not an ordinary wild fruit. Yeah, I really didn't notice it if you didn't mention it. Yu Sanjiang pointed to a hill not far away and said, "I picked it there. There's still many fruits there." That can't be. Ordinary wild fruits would not have such rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Unless what? Yihao paused for a moment before continuing. Unless that place itself is rich in heaven and earth spirit qi. These wild fruits absorb some of the spirit qi that overflows from that place day and night. Over time, they will achieve this effect. Yu Sanjiang's eyes lit up and he said excitedly, "You mean there might be a spirit stone vein in that place?" "It's just a guess." "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go." Yihao looked at Yu Sanjiang's blurry back and shook his head with a smile. In the bamboo forest of the Yu residence, Zhixian and Yu Yingwan had different expressions as they watched Yihao and Yu Yingwan leave. Banished Immortal's face was a little gloomy. Underneath the gloominess was a hint of nervousness. Yu Yingwan's face was still calm, and under the calmness, there was a trace of joy. After Yihao and Yu Sanjiang arrived at the hill, the image in the projection suddenly became very blurry. Yu Yingwan was shocked, then asked unhappily, "What's going on? Why can't I see clearly?" Banished Immortal was delighted and said lightly, "What's there to be surprised about? Maybe it's because the heaven-earth spirit qi is too dense, causing the image to be blurry." Yu Yingwan angrily waved his sleeves and prepared to leave. He was clearly not satisfied with Banished Immortal's explanation. Banished Immortal stood up and said softly, "You family head, I hope you have some self-respect and don't ruin young Master Shu's plan. After all, your Yu family's exhausted spirit veins can't withstand the torment." "Ha ha." Banished Immortal left after saying that. Yu Yingwan heard Banished Immortal's mocking laughter and his tightly clenched fists fell down powerlessly. He turned and walked through the bamboo forest and came to a small hill full of weeds. Yu Yingwan looked at the small hill that he hadn't been to for a long time. He slowly cleared away all the weeds on the hill. Finally, he sat at the foot of the hill and lay on the hill, looking at the gloomy sky. "Back then, after you came back, you were bedridden and couldn't get up. The next day, you passed away. I didn't even have time to say a word to you, and you left just like that. Are you willing to accept this? Also, I don't know why, but after you left, the spirit veins that my Yu family has been guarding and using all this time suddenly withered by more than half. All these years, I've been searching for the reason behind your death and the spirit veins' exhaustion. But no matter how hard I search, the clues always point to that place. Soon, all the great families will go there. Do you think I should go?" Yu Yingwan talked endlessly to the small hill. Finally, when he felt a bit sleepy, he stood up and said to the small hill, "You're not going? Then wouldn't my 10 years of forbearance be wasted? I will definitely find out the truth. Definitely." Yihao and Yu Sanjiang came to the hill. Just as Yu Sanjiang said, there were many wild fruits here. Each one contained rich heaven-earth spirit qi. Yihao half squatted and placed his palm on the ground, carefully sensing. "How is it? Did you find anything?" Yu Sanjiang also imitated Yihao's actions. Unfortunately, he couldn't sense anything, so he looked at Yihao and asked. Yihao's slightly closed eyes suddenly opened and said, "There should be a spirit veins below." "Really?" Yu Sanjiang's face lit up and said excitedly, "That's great. I knew there was definitely something good below." However, Yihao paused for a moment, then said, "However, this spirit vein seems to be consuming itself." "What do you mean?" Yu Sanjiang didn't understand. Yihao explained, It means that with every passing moment, the spirit chi below the spirit veins becomes thinner and thinner. I think it won't be long before the spirit veins completely dry up. How can this be? Yu Sanjiang suddenly became anxious and asked, "Is there any way to solve this?" Yi Hao suddenly asked, "Why do you care so much about this spirit veins? Even if this spirit veins don't consume, you can't take it away. This is a trial ground contributed by the Yuan family. The spirit veins also belong to them." His words woke Yu Sanjiang up. Yu Sanjiang completely lost hope and said, "To be honest, there's a spirit vein hidden under each of the 7 main peaks. However, for some reason, the spirit veins of the Yu family suddenly dried up 10 years ago. This spirit vein is also related to the fate of a family. The drying up of the spirit veins caused an immeasurable loss to the Yu family. Therefore, for the past 10 years, the Yu family has been at the bottom of the 7 big families. I know that Father is worried sick about the spirit vein, so I really want to help Father. This caused me to lose my composure when I saw the spirit vein. However, you are right. Even if this spirit vein is discovered, what does it have to do with the Yu family? Chapter 1477. So that's how it is. Yi Hao retracted his hand and prepared to leave with Yu Sanjiang. Suddenly, he felt a wave of dizziness. When he looked at the ground again, he saw a huge vein of spirit stones buried underground. Looking along the spirit vein, there was a huge shadow of a giant beast at the end of the spirit vein. This shadow was almost the same as the one he saw when he first entered the trial grounds. He stared at the huge shadow at the end of the spirit vein. The shadow seemed to feel something. It turned its head and opened its scarlet eyes to look at Yi Hao. Then, the shadow grinned as if it was mocking him. Wong. Yi Hao felt like his head was about to explode. He quickly retracted his eyes and knelt on the ground. He supported himself with his hands and slowly panted. Yu Sanjiang sensed Yi Hao's abnormality and hurriedly asked, "Sanjiao, what's wrong?" Yi Hao calmed himself down and said, "I'm fine. I just feel a little dizzy. I'll be fine after some rest." Then, Yi Hao looked at the ground again. This time, he couldn't see anything. However, the pressure from the shadow was still engraved in his heart. Regarding the scene just now, Yi Hao could not make sense of it no matter how he racked his brains. He didn't know when it started, but he would always see some strange things. Yi Hao wasn't sure if what he saw just now was real. If it was, then he suspected that the underground spirit vein might be used to seal the shadow. But why was the shadow sealed? What was going on? Did it have anything to do with the Yuan family? No one could answer this series of questions. He could only slowly unravel them himself. Green Fallen Peak, Yuan Mansion's secret room. Yuan Shu frowned. He looked at Banished Immortal and asked, "Is what you said true? Those 2 brats went to that mountain?" "That's right, Master." Banished Immortal repeated the whole story. Yuan Shu waved his hand and said to Ing, "Go and see if there's anything wrong with that monster." Ing Yi, who had received the order, quickly disappeared. Not long after, he arrived at Yuan Shu's side. "How is it? Is there anything unusual?" "Nothing out of the ordinary." Yuan Shu's furrowed brows relaxed when he heard that. He waved his hand at Jixian. Banished Immortal looked at Yuan Shu suspiciously, then slowly left the secret room. Yuan Shu stood in the secret room and muttered to himself. Before that old man died, he left behind quite a bit of information. In the beginning, I paid a hefty price to obtain the Wu Dao sword. Who would have thought that the Wu Dao sword that can give people the scarlet eyes would end up in Yi Hao's hands? There's no other way. I can only start planning against Yi Hao. After all, without him, I won't be able to enter that place. So, I asked the Heavenly Street Convention to be brought forward and let that brat come to me on his own accord. I could use this to control him and use him to enter that place. Ingy couldn't help but ask, "Is that place really that scary?" "Of course." Yuan Shu smiled evilly and said, "Don't forget, these 6 seemingly ordinary beads were brought out by that old man from that place. It was because of these 6 beads that we knew that there was such a terrifying existence in that place. So, We made a lot of plans around it. Yi agreed. Indeed. I didn't expect these 6 beads to contain 6 different small worlds. And each small world has a shadow of that monster. No, you're wrong. Yuan Shu said sternly. Before that old man died, he let slip a sentence. He said that the worlds in these 6 pearls are actually one world. What? He was stunned. In other words, these 6 beads are only a part of the complete world of Warcraft. There are other beads scattered around. When all the beads are gathered, they will form the true world of Warcraft. He came back to his senses after a while and said, "Are you sure these beads are the most inconspicuous things in that place?" Yuan Shu sank into his memories and murmured, "A long time ago, the ancestor of the Ling family accidentally entered that place and learned an ordinary martial art. After he came back, he became a spirit monarch expert. Since then, the Green Mountain Empire was formed. And that ordinary martial art was the supreme martial art of the Ling family, the Great Thousand-World Scripture. Unfortunately, this Great Thousand-World Scripture can only be practiced by men. Otherwise, with Ling Junyin's talent, she would have entered the spirit monarch realm long ago. Now, do you know how scary that place is?" "Yes, I know. I'll go and make sure nothing goes wrong." Hearing this, Yi's expression became serious, and then he left. Yuan Shu stretched out his arms and closed his eyes. He said somewhat crazily, "Not only do I want to enter that place, I want to completely occupy that place. I want to lead the Yuan family to glory and make the Green Mountain Empire the 4th, 6th rank empire in the ancient demon region." Ha ha ha. In Yuan Mu's mansion, the masked man discovered that Yi Hao and the others were a bit strange in the training ground, so he came to report. In the room, although Yuan Mu was blind, he still held a book in his hand. He gently turned a page and asked, "Is there something strange?" "Yes, I found that there is something wrong with that training ground." "What do you mean?" "Some people or demonic beasts that died in that training ground would turn into a mass of spirit chi and disappear." Yuan Mu put down the book in his hand and asked, "Did you find out where the spirit chi went?" The masked man hesitated, but he still said, "It seems to have been absorbed by a demonic beast." Yuan Mu was stunned and thought of a bad past, but he immediately calmed down and said in a low voice, "Our current focus is on that kid. Don't worry about anything else for now. Do we need to investigate that demonic beast?" "No, we just need to do what we need to do." "Yes." After the masked man left, Yuan Mu picked up the book, but his mind was no longer on the book. He went to the window and whispered, "I hope it's not that demonic beast." In the training ground, a familiar voice sounded. "The training is over. Everyone is to leave." Then a white light flashed in the Qingshan area. After the white light faded, Yi Hao and the others appeared in the center of the field. There were more than 1,000 people who entered, but only a few dozen came back. The intensity of the competition could be imagined. The old man looked at the ranking on the screen and read aloud. "The first round of the training is over. Next, I will announce the top 4 to advance to the second round. First place, Yi Sangao of the 6th rank Spirit Emperor Realm, 186,300 battle tokens. Second place, Yu Sanjiang of the 8th rank Spirit Emperor Realm, 157,621 battle tokens." Yi Hao didn't wait for the old man to finish reading and went straight to the audience. His spirited eyes suddenly dimmed. Chapter 1478. Yi Hao sat silently beside Wu Wenyong, looking dejected. Wu Wenyong patted Yi Hao's shoulder and said, "Congratulations, Sangao. You have first place." "Oh," Yi Hao replied emotionlessly. "Don't be unhappy. I'll bring you out for a feast." "Oh, be happy. The second round is in 2 days. You have to prepare well." "Oh." Wu Wenyong sighed helplessly and said, "Bing, he hasn't left yet. She said she'll wait for you on the street selling candied haws. She'll leave the next morning at the latest." "Okay, I got it." Yi Hao did not show the joy that he should have shown. He only responded faintly and then walked into the distance. Wu Wenyong didn't understand. At this moment, Yu Sanjiang came to his side and asked, "Brother Yi, where are you going?" "I don't know. Wu Wenyong shrugged helplessly. When the sun rose, Bing Yi looked at the red sun and sighed softly. The swordsman in black came to Bing Yi's side and said unhappily, "It's been a night since the competition ended. That kid hasn't come. I don't think he'll come. Princess, let's not wait anymore. Let's go." Bing Yi didn't say anything and didn't move. At this time, the masked leader came in front of Bing Yi and said respectfully, "Princess, you said that you would come back with us the next morning regardless of whether the person you were waiting for showed up or not. Now that it's time, can we set off?" Bing Yi looked at the end of the street and said, "He might be injured. Let's wait a little longer." "Princess." The swordsman in blue and the swordsman in black drew their swords at the same time. The masked leader's neck was filled with killing intent. The masked leader looked at the two without fear and said, "Sirs, the time is up. We should leave." Suddenly, a figure appeared at the end of the street. "He's here." Bing Yi looked at the figure, and her bright eyes dimmed again. She sighed and said, "Is that so? Stop, you can't go in." A masked man in a crimson coat stopped the figure rushing from the end of the street. That figure had a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes. He shouted, "Go away, let me in. I want to see Bing Yi." The leader of the masked men looked at the figure and said with disdain, "Princess, is this the person you've been waiting for? Fifth level spirit emperor? Are you sure you're not making fun of me?" The blue-clothed sword artist and the black-clothed sword artist withdrew their swords at the same time and looked at Bing Yi. Bing Yi nodded faintly. The blue-clothed swordsman said in a low voice, "Let him in." However, the masked man in a crimson coat still blocked the door. The swordsman in black coldly looked at the leader of the masked men and said, "Qi Yin, didn't you hear? Tell your men to let him in." Scarlet Flame sneered and said, "Let him in." Only then did the person at the door let Wu Wenyong in. Before Wu Wenyong could say anything, Bing Yi asked, "What about him?" Wu Wenyong looked troubled. Bing Yi's heart tightened as he asked, "Is he seriously injured?" Wu Wenyong shook his head. "Then he didn't advance?" Wu Wenyong still shook his head. "Then he can't come?" Wu Wenyong still shook his head. The black-clothed swordsman said angrily, "Can you stop shaking the rattle drum and say something? What happened to that kid?" Sigh. Wu Wenyong sighed helplessly and said, "Yi Sangao is missing." "What?" Bing Yi was shocked. Then he sat on a tea chair with blank eyes. The black-clothed swordsman pulled out his sword and was about to go find Yi Hao, but he was stopped by the blue-clothed swordsman. Qi Yin sneered, "I'm afraid that kid didn't dare to come after seeing such a strong lineup." The blue-clothed swordsman asked calmly, "What happened?" Wu Wenyong recalled, "Yesterday, after I told Sangao what Bing Yi told me to tell him, Sangao left in disappointment. I thought he went back to the inn, but I didn't see him there. Then I asked the inn owner and the waiter, but they said they didn't see him either. I thought maybe he came to find you, but I looked from afar and didn't see him. Then I went back to the inn, but he didn't come back after waiting for an entire night. So the next morning, he came to find Bing Yi. This cowardly kid." The black-clothed swordsman angrily chopped off a corner of the tea table. The blue-clothed swordsman looked at Bing Yi worriedly. Scarlet Flame said indifferently from the side, "Princess, since the person you're waiting for hasn't come, shouldn't we set off?" Bing Yi took a deep breath and said disappointedly, "Let's go." "Bing Yi, aren't you going to wait for Sangao?" "Bing Yi." Wu Wenyong wanted to persuade Bing Yi, but he was pushed away by Qi Yin. Qi Yin even sent 2 people to hold him down. Wu Wenyong looked at Bing Yi's back and felt helpless. Just as Bing Yi and the others walked out of the tea shop, a spirit array suddenly flashed under their feet. Qi Yin looked at the complicated spirit patterns under his feet and asked in confusion, "This is a spirit array?" Immediately after, the spirit force lines under Bing Yi's feet suddenly lit up. Just as a beam of light was about to shoot up into the sky, Scarlet Flame stepped forward and stomped heavily. The ground suddenly cracked, and the shining lines dimmed. "Transfer spirit array? Who's playing tricks? Hurry up and come out." Crimson Flame roared at the surroundings. Bing Yi was overjoyed and looked at the end of the street. There was a familiar figure standing there. After seeing that familiar figure, Tears appeared in the corner of Bing Yi's eyes. Qi Yin looked at the young figure and said, "It's you? You set up this spirit array?" Yi Hao, who was dragging his My Dao sword, walked closer and closer. He looked at Qi Yin and said coldly, "What a pity. I almost succeeded, but you ruined it. Wen Yong, it's been hard on you to put on such a show with me." Wu Wenyong, who was being held captive by the two, didn't say anything and just laughed. Then Yi Hao looked at Bing Yi, who had tears in the corner of her eyes, and said softly, "Bing Yi, I'm sorry I'm late. However, none of you can take my woman away." Boom! As soon as Yi Hao finished speaking, he was sent flying. Qi Yin stood where Yi Hao was just standing. He retracted his fist and mocked, "You're just a mere 6th-level spirit emperor. You don't know what's good for you." Bing Yi was shocked. Just as she was about to move, she was stopped by the black-clothed and blue-clothed swordsman. Bing Yi looked at them pleadingly, but the two of them shook their heads coldly. Cough, cough. Yi Hao, who had climbed out of the rubble, smiled sinisterly. "Oh, is that so? Then look at your feet." Hearing this, Qi Yin lowered his head. Suddenly, many vines made of spirit energy drilled out from the ground and bound Qi Yin in the air. Yi Hao laughed loudly and roared, "Sixth sword, Feng Ke." Chapter 1479. Boom! Behind Yi Hao, 6 flaming phoenixes rose. They flapped their wings and flew toward Qi Yin, who was tied up in the air. Ding dong! Congratulations to the host for using the 6th move of the Phoenix Dance of the 9th Heaven. The host is rewarded with a fragment of the Void Mirror. Qi Yin snorted in front of the 6 phoenixes that had the battle strength of an 8th-level spirit emperor. He shook his arms, and the binding array shattered. Qi Yin landed safely on the ground and punched out. A huge fireball gushed out, easily tearing apart the 6 fire phoenixes that were flapping their wings. Then, without slowing down, it went straight for Yi Hao, who was standing rooted to the ground. Yi Hao held his Wu Dao sword and faced the huge fireball. Then, he shouted, "Where is Zhu Gui?" Hearing this, an unfamiliar figure suddenly appeared behind Yi Hao. That figure knocked an arrow, and then an arrow with purple lightning suddenly broke through the void, heading straight for the defenseless Qi Yin. On the street, Bing Yi looked at the tall buildings nearby and said to the blue-robed swordsman, "Uncle Lon, those people, please." The blue-robed swordsman nodded and disappeared in the next second. Not long after, the tall buildings nearby collapsed and there were screams. Qi Yin stood in the same place, facing Zhu Gui's arrow. He didn't dodge, but sneered, "You want to hurt me with this little trick? You're overestimating yourself." Before the arrow reached Qi Yin took a step forward and stretched out his hand. The long arrow flashing with purple lightning was broken in half in his hand, and then he casually threw it on the ground. Then, Zhu Gui's pupil shrank, and he quickly retreated. Unfortunately, his movements were too slow in Qi Yin's eyes. Qi Yin punched Zhu Gui's back. Zhu Gui's face twisted in pain. His whole body flew out like a cannonball. Boom, boom, boom. He smashed through many walls. On the other side, Yi Hao, who took Qi Yin's attack with all his strength, knelt on the ground and panted slowly. Qi Yin landed on the eaves and looked at Yi Hao, who was covered in dust. He sneered and reached out to stop the other masked men who were about to step forward. He said loudly, "Leave this person to me. You guys take care of the princess." "Yes." Hearing this, the other masked men returned to Bing Yi's side. Scarlet Flame looked at Yi Hao, who wanted to get up several times, but slowly knelt down. Scarlet Flame said, "Boy, I admire your courage, but this is the end. We must take the princess away. You should give up." Yi Hao coughed softly and looked at the fresh blood on the ground. His red eyes turned even redder, and his Wu Dao sword glowed with a bright red light. Yi Hao stood up slowly and smiled bitterly. "I asked someone if I could stop her from leaving. That person said yes. I asked what to do, and he said that I just had to defeat those people who came to pick her up." Yi Hao dragged the Wu Dao sword and slowly walked towards Qi Yin. He then said, That's right. If I don't want her to leave, I'll just have to defeat you. But I know that anyone from the chaotic realm has a much higher cultivation than the people from the ancient demon realm. It's easier said than done to defeat you. But I don't want to see you take her away while I do nothing. I can only hide in a corner and cry, because I like her. After saying that, Yihao's clothes fluttered in the wind, and different lights intertwined beneath Qi Yan's feet. Not far away, the blue-clothed swordsman, who had just returned to Bingyi's side, was startled. He then sighed softly and murmured, "If the person who came wasn't Qi Yan, perhaps you would have succeeded." Bingyi, whose eyes were filled with tears, looked at the figure who was charging forward without a care for his own safety. She smiled and felt a joy that she hadn't felt in a long time. Qi Yan looked at the colorful lights under his feet and had a bad feeling in his heart. He wanted to retreat, but he couldn't move. At the same time, not far away, 3 long arrows mixed with purple lightning whistled through the air. Qi Yan faced Yihao's carefully arranged death situation and roared. He no longer suppressed the spiritual power in his body and released it. Rumble. Dark clouds covered the sky, and purple lightning constantly rolled in the sky. It was as if the heavens were warning Qi Yan, a rude person who shouldn't be here. But Scarlet Flame didn't care at all. He sneered and said, "Very good. I didn't think that you would actually force me to use my true strength. But the gap between you and me is something you can't even begin to imagine." Buzz. The colorful lights under Qi Yan's feet suddenly stopped jumping and turned into a dazzling golden light. Then, a pillar of spiritual power that surpassed the Spirit Emperor realm shot up from Qi Yan's feet into the sky. At the same time, the purple lightning in the sky turned into a thick pillar of light and shot out. It was aimed at Qi Yan, who was standing on the eaves. 2 equally thick pillars of light, one golden and one purple, sandwiched Qi Yan in the middle and attacked him wantonly. From afar, it looked like a red dot in the middle of the golden and purple pillars of light was struggling slowly, as if it wanted to escape. In Lishan City, in a small, quiet room in the underground auction house, a young voice sounded. "Is that Qi Yan? I didn't expect it. Looks like there's no hope." Under the Green Mountain, a huge shadow of a demon beast suddenly opened its scarlet eyes. The demonic beast opened its mouth and looked above its head. It murmured, "Why are those guys still in the ancient demon realm? Are they trying to kill us all?" Then the demonic beast shook its huge head and said, "No, they're not coming for me. I don't know who's going to be unlucky again." Then the demonic beast fell into a deep sleep. Under an unknown mountain, 100 miles away from the Green Mountain Imperial City, there was a black coffin. Suddenly, the coffin shook violently. Then, the lid of the coffin fell off by itself. A middle-aged, elegant man in a green robe walked out of the coffin. The man looked in the direction of the Green Mountain Imperial City and said calmly, "Someone's coming? That's good. It's time for the ancient demon realm to change." On the streets of the Green Mountain Imperial City, Yihao's heart was in his throat. Whether he could succeed or not depended on this moment. Suddenly, Yihao's pupils shrank. He was stunned. The red dot in the sky, which was struggling between the 2 pillars of light, suddenly tore the 2 pillars of light apart. Only the red pillar of light was left in the sky. Not long after, the red pillar of light also dissipated. The sky became clear again. Yihao was stunned. He exclaimed in his heart, What kind of power is this? Even the heavenly lightning can't do anything to it." Qi Yan, who was completely red, slowly landed on the ground. Just then, 3 long arrows mixed with purple lightning flew to Qi Yan's side. Chapter 1480. Unfortunately, the 3 flying arrows only managed to scratch Scarlet Flame's body for a moment before breaking on their own. Qi Yan looked at the broken arrowheads on the ground and sneered. Even the heavenly lightning can't do anything to me, let alone your purple lightning." Not far away, the black-clothed swordsman said loudly, "I didn't expect this kid to be so interesting." He actually forced Qi Yan to use his true strength, but he also attracted the heavenly lightning. The blue-clothed swordsman frowned and said, "The heavenly lightning of the ancient demon domain is nothing, but with Qi Yin causing such a ruckus, we have to leave immediately." In the middle, Bing Yi was silent, cold tears slowly dripping to the ground. Qi Yin looked at the stunned Yi Hao and laughed. "I like to see my opponents in despair. How about it? I already said that the gap between you and me is something you don't even dare to imagine. The heavenly lightning of the ancient demon domain is nothing. When you see me, you still have to take a detour." Yi Hao looked at the clear sky and felt that it was completely hopeless, but he was unwilling to give up. Qi Yin sneered and took a step forward, directly grabbing Yi Hao's head, as if he was going to crush it with his claw. "Uncle Lon!" Bing Yi exclaimed. The blue-clothed swordsman pulled out his sword, ready to attack at any time. At this moment, Yi Hao swung his sword and roared, "Little Marquis of One, where is Lu Fang?" Suddenly, a pitch-black halberd fell from the sky, smashing directly in front of Yi Hao, blocking Qi Yan's attack. Yi Hao's lips curled up, and he said loudly, "Come out, eight-armed Neza, Xiangchong." Immediately after, the wall beside Qi Yan suddenly shattered, and a burly man holding a javelin in his right hand, a shield in his left, and 24 throwing knives on his back rushed out. The hard shield directly smashed into Qi Yan's body, and Qi Yan flew out, crashing into the wall beside him. Seeing this, the blue-clothed swordsman put down the sword at his waist and said, "This kid is getting more and more interesting." Before Qi Yan could climb out of the pile of rubble, a headless demonic beast that looked like a yellow sack and was as red as core fire, with 6 legs and 2 wings, descended from the sky and smashed into the pile of rubble with a loud bang. Amidst the rubble, Scarlet Flame angrily punched the demonic beast and sent it flying. At the same time, a voice came from behind Yi Hao. "Purple Beard Count, Huang Fu Duan is here. Don't hurt my master." Just as Red Flame got up, a purple and a black demonic beast phantoms flashed out beside him, attacking him from both sides. Scarlet Flame sneered, his body somersaulting in the air, using only 2 legs to resolve the attacks of the 2 demonic beasts. Yi Hao looked coldly at the relaxed Qi Yan. Behind him stood 4 figures. They were the 9th-level Spirit Emperor Little Marquis of Wen Lu Fang, the 9th-level Spirit Emperor 8-armed Neza Xiangchong, the 8th-level Spirit Emperor Handy Hulu Zhu Gui, and the 8th-level Spirit Emperor Purple Beard Count Huang Fu Duan. "Xiao Di, this person is not easy to deal with," Xiangchong said as he held his shield tightly. Huang Fu Duan called Dijiang Sacred Beast, Purple Beard Blue Eyes Beast, and Prisoner Bullfighting Beast to his side and said, "That's right. My 3 demonic beasts are all 9th-level Spirit Embers. Even so, they couldn't hurt him at all. You can imagine how terrifying his strength is." Zhu Gui said with a gloomy face, "Yes, my whistling arrow is useless against him." Lu Fang waved the Sky Piercer in his hand and said, "What are you afraid of? Let's go together. I don't believe we can't beat him." At the back of the alley, Wu Wenyong, who was kneeling on the ground, looked uncertain. Standing atop the pile of rubble, Qi Yan put away his playful smile and said coldly, "I admit, your series of plans and spirit arrays are very good, but in the face of absolute strength, everything you do is futile." Yi Hao's face was cold, and he was secretly gathering power. "I've just exposed my aura and attracted the heavenly lightning. I've caused quite a ruckus. It is indeed time for me to leave. So, I'll let this farce end." Yi Hao roared, and the 5 people and 3 demonic beasts rushed forward. Scarlet Flame sneered, and his whole body glowed red. After 10 breaths, the 4 people and 3 demonic beasts were lying on the ground. Yi Hao, whose forehead was bleeding, was lifted into the air by Scarlet Flame. Bing Yi was shocked and wanted to rush forward, but she was stopped by the blue-clothed swordsman. The blue-clothed swordsman said to Bing, "Don't worry, Scarlet Flame won't kill him." Hearing this, Bing Yi finally calmed down, but the worry on his face was still evident. Scarlet Flame looked at the seriously injured Yi Hao and sneered, "I won't kill you this time because of the princess, but I'm not sure about the next time." Scarlet Flame suddenly thought of something and said with a smile, Oh, right. If nothing unexpected happens, there shouldn't be a next time. The princess isn't someone trash like you can get close to. Pay attention to your status. Also, the princess will never be your woman in this lifetime. Why don't you look in the mirror? Yihao ignored Scarlet Flame's trash talk and turned his head with difficulty to look at Bing Yi, who was crying. The corner of his mouth rose slightly, revealing a bitter smile. Bing Yi's heart was filled with grief. She turned around and couldn't bear to look anymore. At the same time, she growled, "Scarlet Flame, that's enough. I'll go back with you." Hearing this, Scarlet Flame grinned and replied, "Yes." Then, he threw Yihao into the air like he was throwing trash. When Yihao was about to land, Scarlet Flame kicked Yihao's abdomen heavily. Yihao fell at the end of the street and couldn't get up anymore. After doing all this, Scarlet Flame clapped his hands and followed behind Bing Yi. The group slowly walked into the distance. One person stood at the end of the street, crying. One person lay at the end of the street, roaring. "Bing Yi, wait for me. I will definitely go to the Chaos Realm. Wait for me. I will find you. The next time we meet, I want to marry you. I won't let anyone break us up again." Bing Yi cried silently. The group walked further and further away, gradually disappearing at the end of the street. The sky slowly turned gloomy again. It started to drizzle, and then it turned into a downpour. Wu Wenyong, Lu Fong, and the others brought Yihao back to the inn. At night, Yihao, who was lying on the bed, suddenly woke up. He wanted to get up, but he felt a burning sensation all over his body. This made him give up the idea of getting up. Suddenly, the lamp in the room flickered. Then, a blue figure appeared in front of the bed. Yihao looked at the familiar figure and asked, "Why are you here?" The blue-clothed swordsman sat beside the bed and said, "The princess is worried about you, so she asked me to come and take a look. I'm fine now. Is that so?" The blue-clothed swordsman chuckled. He reached out his hand and slowly approached Yihao. Yihao looked at the blue-clothed swordsman's calloused hand and said in a panic, "What are you doing? I don't have this kind of hobby. If you come closer, I'll scream." The blue-clothed swordsman smiled, but didn't say anything. He still reached out his hand gently. Yihao's scalp went numb. He wanted to scream for help. Chapter 1481. Before Yihao could say anything, the blue-clothed swordsman took back his hand. What was different was that there was a Buddha-shaped jade stone in his hand. The blue-clothed swordsman looked at the jade stone and frowned. Where did this jade stone come from? Yihao was confused. "You know this jade stone? When I was on the street, I felt that there was something wrong with the jade stone you were wearing. This is not an ordinary jade stone. There's a seed, goo heart stone in it. If you wear it for a long time, you will completely lose your will." Yihao thought to himself, "It is just as the system said." Yihao knew, but he pretended to be surprised. "It is so serious. How do you break it?" The blue-clothed swordsman chuckled. "There are not many people in the ancient demon region who can break this thing. But I am not from the ancient demon region. This thing is simple." The blue-clothed swordsman clenched his hand. Then, a cloud of black smoke appeared above the jade stone. Then, the blue-clothed swordsman put the jade stone on Yihao's bed and said, "Okay, I have taken care of the seed, goo heart stone. Everything is fine now." Yihao was curious. "How did you do it?" The blue-clothed swordsman took out a black pill and said, "This is the goo heart pill. It is used to break the goo heart stone. I have a friend who also wears this kind of goo heart stone. Can you give me some?" "Sure." The blue-clothed swordsman took out a medicine bottle and put on Yihao's bed. "There are many goo heart stones in here. It is enough for you. But you have not answered my question. Where did you get this?" "Yuan Shu gave it to me." "The Yuan family?" The blue-clothed swordsman muttered to himself. Then, the blue-clothed swordsman was about to leave. He seemed to have thought of something. He took out a piece of paper and turned to Yihao. "All right, if you really come to the chaotic realm in the future, you can find me here." The paper slowly fell on Yihao's bed. Yihao was confused. "Why are you helping me?" The blue-clothed swordsman smiled brightly and said, "Because you look like an old friend of mine." Then, the flame of the lamp flickered, and the blue-clothed swordsman disappeared. Yi Hao got up with difficulty and looked at the note. His face turned gloomy. Green Fallen Peak, Immortal Cloud Pavilion. Yuan Shu sat in the secret chamber and waited quietly. Suddenly, a figure walked in and stood silently behind Yuan Shu. Yuan Shu played with the jade Buddha stone in his hand and asked, "In the battle during the day, my men were all killed. I didn't see the details. You were there at the time. Tell me, what happened?" The figure was silent for a while before he told the whole story. However, what he said was somewhat inconsistent with the truth. Yuan Shu stood up and came to his side, asking, "You said that he is good at spiritual arrays and has 2 guards at the 8th level of the Spirit Emperor realm. Is that true?" "Of course it's true." Yuan Shu chuckled. He suddenly turned around and grabbed Wu Wenyong's neck. "You better not lie to me. Otherwise, you know the consequences." Although Wu Wenyong, who was being held by the neck, had difficulty breathing, he still insisted, "I'm telling the truth." Yuan Shu chuckled and threw Wu Wenyong to the ground. "I know. You can leave now." Wu Wenyong was silent. He got up and left the secret chamber. After Wu Wenyong left, Yi came in. He stood beside Yuan Shu and said respectfully, "Everything is ready. We just have to wait for the Heavenly Street Convention to end." "Very good." Yuan Shu picked up the wine jug on the table and poured himself a cup. He asked, "Is there any news from the palace and the Qing family?" "No. Everything is normal. What about that monster? How is his strength recovering?" "This." He hesitated. "What's wrong?" Yuan Shu shouted. He hurriedly said, "I don't know why, but it's different from what we expected. It's almost there." "Then get someone to fill this small hole. Our men can't get away now, huh?" Yuan Shu laughed loudly and said, "Who said anything about getting our men? Get Yuan Mu's men." Hearing this, Yi silently retreated. Yuan Shu's eyes flashed with a hint of madness. Wu Wenyong came out of the Celestial Cloud Pavilion in a daze. After he returned to the inn and drank a few pots of strong wine, he staggered back to his room. When he opened the door, he saw a familiar figure sitting on the tea chair in the room. His eyes were stunned, and the wine pot in his hand fell to the ground. The next day, Yu Sanjiang of the Yu clan came directly to the inn where Yi Hao was staying. Then he took Yi Hao and Wu Wenyong to the most famous inn in the Qingshan district. He said he wanted to treat them to a meal to celebrate their advancement. The two of them had nothing to do, so they went together. Feng Lian, in a private room on the 2nd floor. Yu Sanjiang ordered a table full of dishes. The 3 of them chatted and laughed. Suddenly, Yu Sanjiang said that he forgot to bring the gift he prepared for Yi Hao and Wu Wenyong. He wanted to go back to the residence with Wu Wenyong to get the gifts. Wu Wenyong didn't think much of it and left with Yu Sanjiang. Yi Hao sat alone in the private room and drank wine. After about an hour, he suddenly said, "You've been here for half a day. Aren't you hungry? Why don't you come out and eat?" As soon as he finished speaking, the innermost wall of the private room suddenly moved and a middle-aged man walked out. Yi Hao looked at the middle-aged man and said, "Patriarch Yu, it really is you." After Yu Yingwan sat down, he asked, "How did you know there was someone here?" Yi Hao smiled and said, "Maybe Sanjiang's acting is a bit clumsy, or maybe the reason he sent Wenyong away is a bit clumsy." Yu Yingwan drank a cup of wine and didn't refute. Yi Hao put down his cup and asked, "Patriarch Yu, I like to be straightforward. Tell me, why are you looking for me?" "It's nothing. Sanjiang's promotion is all thanks to you, so I've set up a banquet to thank you." Yi Hao sneered and said, "Thank me? Patriarch Yu, I'm not a fool. If you really want to thank me, why don't you invite me to a banquet openly? Why use Sanjiang as a cover? Continue. You've gone through so much trouble. It means that you don't want Yuan Shu to know. So I think there's no need for this banquet." Yi Hao paused and then said, "However, if this is your attitude, then forgive me for not keeping you company." Just as Yi Hao was about to leave, a figure in golden armor suddenly appeared in front of him. Yi Hao asked, "Patriarch Yu, what is the meaning of this?" "Haha, Yi Hao, you're really smart." Suddenly, a woman's voice came from behind the flipped wall. Then a woman walked out. Yu Yingwan stood up and spread out his hands, saying, Actually, it's someone else who wants to see you. Chapter 1482. Yi Hao sat in his seat. Beside him was a young man in golden armor. Opposite him was a woman in plain clothes. Although she didn't have anything luxurious on her, her noble temperament couldn't be concealed. Yuan sat beside the woman. He seemed to be very respectful to her. Yi Hao tapped his finger on the table. He looked at the young woman and asked, "What is it? Aren't you curious who I am?" The young woman looked at him in confusion. "I don't care who you are. If there's nothing else, I'm going back to prepare for the Sky Street Convention." The woman was stunned. Then she said, "Interesting. I am the daughter of the Green Mountain Emperor, Ling Junyan. I'm also the princess of the Green Mountain Empire." Oh, and? Yi Hao was a bit surprised, but he didn't show it. On the other hand, the woman was a bit surprised. She asked, "You're not surprised?" Afterward, the woman felt relieved and said to herself, "That's true. My father is still unconscious, and the Ling family is declining day by day. The Yuan family and the Qing family have long since taken control of the court. Your current behavior is quite normal." Yi Hao couldn't bear to see the woman feeling sorry for herself. He changed the topic. "Yuan, you're good. On the surface, you're on the side of young Master Shu, but in reality, you're on the side of the princess. I'm going to expose you to young Master Shu." Yuan snorted and asked, "Expose me? Is the emperor of the Tianyuan Empire really Yuan Shu's dog?" Yi Hao smiled, but didn't say anything. He went back to the topic. "Tell me, what is your purpose in coming here?" Ling Junyan looked serious and said, "That Wu Wenyong beside you was planted by Yuan Shu. You have to be careful of him. Is it because of this? Seems like you already knew." Ling Junyan was getting more and more curious about Yi Hao. She also started to size up this ordinary-looking emperor who dared to take risks alone. Yi Hao smiled. "Since you can find clues, why can't I? If it's because of this, then there's no need." Ling Junyan looked at Yi Hao's back and said in a deep voice, "Wait, I called you here to discuss a collaboration." "Oh, cooperation?" Yi Hao was interested. He sat down and said, "How?" At this moment, little Jia, who was beside Yi Hao, suddenly moved. His figure disappeared from the room, but it didn't take long for him to return. What was different was that there were two bloody heads in his hands. Yi Hao glanced at him and said, "Your bodyguard is not simple." Ling Junyan's expression was somewhat grim as she said, "It's someone from the Immortal Cloud Pavilion Secret Department. Could it be that I've been followed?" Xiao Jia, whose expression had been very calm, said, "That's impossible. I've been investigating along the way. I've definitely not been discovered. Don't be so suspicious. These people from the Dark Department are definitely targeting me." "Yuan Shu doesn't trust me as much as you think." Yi Hao's expression gradually turned cold. "But the people of the Dark Department died for no reason. Yuan Shu will definitely be suspicious." Yuan was a little worried. "Don't worry. Leave this small matter to me. You continue to talk. How do we cooperate?" 1 hour passed in the blink of an eye. Yu Sanjiang and Wu Wenyong also came back with gifts. Yi Hao was still the only one in the private room. Wu Wenyong, who didn't find anything unusual, was also relieved. The three of them began to drink and exchange drinks. During this time, Yi Hao took Yu Sanjiang's jade Buddha stone and used the black pill given by the blue-clothed swordsman to solve the problem of the Heart-Gu Heartstone and the jade Buddha stone. Then, time passed slowly amidst the three of them chatting and laughing. The second round of the competition of the Heavenly Street meeting had arrived. The 24 participants who had successfully advanced to the next round in the 6 venues were transported to the largest peak of Green Mountain by the teleportation formation in their respective areas. It was also the largest area, the Green Mountain District. The 24 participants were led by the royal bodyguards to the resting area for the participants. Next to the resting area for the participants, there were 9 different high platforms. In the center of the high platforms, there was a fighting ring. Among the 7 high platforms, there was a thin woman sitting on the golden high platform that symbolized the royal family. Behind the woman sat a scholarly middle-aged man. Around them were some guards wearing golden armor. On the left side of the golden high platform, there were 3 high platforms from big to small. On the largest high platform sat the two brothers of the Yuan family, the current pavilion master of the Fairy Cloud Pavilion, Yuan Shu, and the blind Yuan Mu. On the other two high platforms sat the people of the Yu family and the Han family. Opposite them were the three major clans led by the Qing family. The other two high platforms were for the important figures sent by the Raging Flame Empire and the Full Moon Empire to supervise the competition. There were no spectators for the second and third rounds of the Heavenly Street meeting, but every match would be broadcasted. Not only could the people of the Empire watch, but the entire ancient demon region could also watch. Ling Junyun saw that everyone had arrived, and it was about time, so she waved her hand at Yuchi Wei behind her. Yuchi Wei accepted the order and came to the center of the stage. He said loudly, "First of all, welcome everyone to this year's Heavenly Street meeting. Let's congratulate the 24 participants who have made it to the second round. Congratulations." On the stage, Yuchi Wei said some words to give face. Below the stage, Yu Sanjiang chatted with Yi Hao. Yu Sanjiang looked at the impassioned Yuchi Wei and said, "This person is the princess' trusted aide and the only person the princess can use." At this moment, Yu Sanjiang already knew that his father was working with Princess Ling and Yi Hao, so he didn't hide anything from Yi Hao. Yi Hao knew that the Yu family was a hidden chess piece and couldn't be used. He also knew that the Ling family was in great danger, but this kind of danger was beyond his expectations. He said, "Is that so? Is the Ling family in such a miserable state?" "That's right." When Yu Sanjiang was about to say a few more words, Yuchi Wei on the stage quickly finished his words and began to reveal the rewards for this year's Heavenly Street meeting. The Emperor attaches great importance to this Heavenly Street meeting. Therefore, as long as you can obtain first place, you will be allowed to participate in the ancestral worship ceremony that will be held soon. When these words came out, everyone was shocked. Ancestral worship ceremony? Only the 7 great families could participate, and every time, only the direct descendants of the 7 great families could participate. As everyone knew, the Qingshan Empire had 7 spirit veins under the mountain. The so-called ancestral worship ceremony was only on the surface. Absorbing the spirit energy of heaven and earth in the depths of the mountain range was the most important. This reward was undoubtedly an opportunity that only the direct descendants of the 7 great families could enter. How could everyone not be envious? Also, the person who obtains first place this time can become the prince consort of my Qingshan Empire and marry our Princess Ling. Wah! The news just now was enough to make people go crazy. They didn't expect this news to be even crazier. Chapter 1483. Everyone looked at Ling Junyun, who was sitting on the high platform. Ling Junyun smiled at everyone's gazes, as if she had accepted this. As long as she could win the Heavenly Street Convention, she could become the Emperor's son-in-law of the Qingshan Empire. After receiving confirmation, everyone's gazes became even more fervent. The atmosphere was very high. Bang! On the high platform, Yuan Shu's expression was a bit ugly. He crushed the wine cup in his hand and snorted. "I didn't think that Ling Junyun would be so willing to spend so much. Not only did she allow us to enter the ancestral worship grounds, she even dares to openly recruit us. I have underestimated her." Not only did Yuan Shu not expect this, even the leaders of the other clans did not expect this. On the high platform of the Qing clan, a young man in white picked up the wine cup on the table and drank it all in one gulp. He said to the guard beside him, "Pass down the order. Tell our people to get first place." Yes, this young man was the current head of the Qing clan, Qing Yunji. He slowly turned the wine cup in his hand and murmured, "Since you have delivered yourself to my door, how could my Qing clan not accept you?" Below the platform, Yu Sanjiang was a bit shocked. After a while, he came back to his senses and said to Yi Hao, "I didn't think that Princess Ling would be willing to spend so much this time." Yi Hao was not surprised at this, as if he already knew this. He said lightly, "Now that the Ling clan is in decline and the heir is only a weak woman, there is no other way other than to use this method to recruit people. Even so, I'm afraid that Princess Ling will overreach herself. Oh, why do you say that? Yu Sanjiang looked at the people around him and said quietly, Brother Yi, you don't know, but there are two people who are the strongest in the Heavenly Street Convention. One is Yuan Li, and the other is Qin Gaozhan. They are both in the 9th level of the Spirit Emperor realm and are the favorites to win this convention. Yuan, Qin? Yi Hao thought about their names and said, You are afraid that the Yuan clan and the Qin clan will take the first place? Princess Ling's actions are not wise. Yes. Yi Hao looked at Yu Sanjiang and said with a smile, Sanjiang, have you forgotten? Yuan Shu said that he would help me win. I'm just afraid that Yuan Shu won't trust you and won't sincerely help you. The corners of Yi Hao's mouth curled up. He smiled and said, It's all right. The competition hasn't started yet. It's still unknown who will be the winner. On the stage, Yu Wei cleared his throat and said, The two prizes that were just announced are the prizes for the champion of the Heavenly Street Convention. Now, I will announce the prizes for the 2nd and 3rd place. The audience below the stage didn't care about the rewards for the 2nd and 3rd place. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the champion's position. Some were following orders from their families, some were fighting for their own future, and some were truly in love with Ling Junyun and wanted to marry her. No matter what purpose these people had, their goal was the same. However, only one person could stand in that position, so the competition was very fierce. Now, the second round of the competition has officially begun. Contestants, please come up and draw lots. Contestants, according to the rules, will be divided into 12 groups. The winner will fight in pairs, and the winner will advance. All contestants, there is a number on your lot. Those with the same number will be in a group. Now, let's start drawing lots. Yi Hao followed the crowd and received his lot. He opened it and saw that it was 1. At this time, Yu Sanjiang ran over and asked, Brother Yi, which group are you in? 1, and you? Yi Hao handed the lot in his hand to Yu Sanjiang and asked, I'm 2. Fortunately, we're not in the same group. Yes. Yu Wei on the stage had already received the group list. He said in a clear voice, The first group, Green Jade District's Yi Sangao against Green Sky District's Lin Tianyi. The second group, Green Jade District's Yu Sanjiang against Green Falling District's Wu Feng. The third group, Green Falling District's Yu Wenli against Green Sound District's Yi Shang. Next, let's invite the first 4 groups onto the stage. As soon as he finished speaking, there were already 8 people standing on the 4 stages. Yu Wei returned to the golden stage and said in a deep voice, Heavenly Street Convention, friends through martial arts. I announce that the competition has officially begun. Ding! As soon as the sound of metal rang out, the 3rd and 4th stages exploded with the sound of spiritual energy colliding. The 2nd stage also surged with spiritual energy. Only the 1st stage remained silent. Yi Hao looked at the young man opposite him and made a gesture of invitation. However, his opponent didn't seem to be in a hurry to make a move. Lin Tianyi crossed his arms and looked at Yi Hao, asking, You're the one called Yi Sangao. You know me? Lin Tianyi sneered and said, I can understand why Lin Cho and the other trash died at your hands. You're a 6th-level Spirit Emperor after all. However, Lin Tianyi is an 8th-level Spirit Emperor. I'm very curious as to how he died at your hands. Yi Hao's expression froze, and he said in a deep voice, You're from the Lin family of Full Moon Kingdom? That's right. I'm from the Lin family of Full Moon Kingdom. You're really haunting me. Yi Hao said in a low voice and slowly pulled out his scarlet Wu Dao sword. Not far away, Yuan Shu stared at Yi Hao's sword and sneered. Behind him, Yuan Mu seemed to feel something. Although his eyes were covered by a white cloth, he still looked at Yi Hao and softly asked, Mu Tao, who is fighting in the 1st stage? Mu Tao knew that her master couldn't see, so she acted as his eyes and took the initiative to explain the identities of the people on the stage and the process of the battle. On the golden stage not far from them, Ling Junyun nervously stared at Yi Hao. After all, in her plan, Yi Hao's victory was very important. He definitely couldn't lose the first battle. Lin Tianyi laughed and put his hands on his belt. He said, Don't worry, After today, the one who won't leave will be you, Yi Sangao. He clenched his fists, and two slender swords appeared in his hands. His body exploded, and he rushed towards Yi Hao like a dragon emerging from the sea. He had to not dodge. He held the Wu Dao sword tightly with both hands. 6 fiery phoenixes that were bathed in flames floated up behind him. He pointed the tip of the sword and charged forward. "Heh, insignificant skill." Lin Tianyi chuckled. He didn't put Yi Hao's move in his eyes. After all, he was an 8th-level Spirit Emperor, while Yi Hao was a 6th-level Spirit Emperor. He was 2 levels higher than Yi Hao. Even if he closed his eyes, he could win, let alone now that he was going all out. As for Lin's death, he always felt that Yi Hao had someone helping him. Otherwise, how could Yi Hao have killed Lin with his strength? There were geniuses in the ancient demon realm who could kill people above their level, but he didn't think it was possible for them to appear here. It was even more impossible for it to be this unprepossessing young man. Lin Tianyi didn't slow down. His 2 swords crossed, and an ice dragon slowly opened its eyes behind him. He laughed. "You have a fiery phoenix, and I have an ice dragon. Today, I'll send you to the afterlife." Chapter 1484. In the air, 6 fire phoenixes and ice dragons intertwined and roared. On the high platform, Qin Yunji asked the Huangfu family head, Huangfu Yunji, Huangfu family head, "Who do you think will win this battle on the first platform?" Huangfu Yunji raised his wine cup and said, "Lin Tianyi's cultivation is high. I think he'll win." "Haha, I don't think so." Yi Sangao was ranked first in the Green Jade district. Suddenly, a cold snort sounded. Qin Yunji looked up and saw that it was Elder Lin from the Full Moon Empire. He smiled and said, "Elder Lin, are you dissatisfied with what I just said?" "I wouldn't dare," Elder Lin said stiffly. "I just think that the Full Moon Empire is a 5th-rank empire, and the Full Moon Empire's Lin clan is the largest clan in the empire. It's easy for us to deal with a country bumpkin from a 4th-rank empire." Not far away, a middle-aged man raised his wine glass and said to Elder Lin, "Lord Lin, you've misunderstood. Our Yunji means that Yi Sangao must have some real skills to be able to advance as the number 1 in the Qingyu district. The people from your country should be careful." Elder Lin raised his cup and said, "Family head Hao's words are reasonable. However, the Green Mountain district has already declined. So what if he's ranked first? He's not even fit to carry Lin Tianyi's shoes." Elder Lin is right. Qin Yunji, Huangfu Yunji, and Hao Gui raised their cups and said. However, they were sneering in their hearts. Yuan Shu said to Yuing Luan with interest, "Yuing Luan, the Full Moon Empire isn't giving you face. Why don't you guess who will win?" Elder Lin and Qin Yunji's conversation was heard by Yuing Luan. Yuing Luan wasn't angry. He said in a voice that everyone could hear, "I don't know about others, but the Full Moon Empire's Lin clan has lost a lot to Yi Sangao. So, I think Yi Sangao will win." "Ha ha!" Yuan Shu laughed loudly and looked at Han Shi, the head of the Han family of the Green Sound Peak. "What do you think, head of the Han family?" Han Shi raised his cup and laughed heartily. "Brother Yu's words are reasonable. I think it's Yi Sangao." At this moment, the envoy from the Fire Empire, Lai Xen, said to Yuan Shu, "Family leader Yuan, you know that the Lin family from the Full Moon Empire are all arrogant. Why are you fighting over this? Come, let's drink." "Okay, let's drink." Old Lin didn't say anything when he heard that. He continued to drink with Qin Yunji and the others. The 6 great clans and the envoys of the 2 empires were divided into 2 factions. They kept toasting each other, and at the same time, they were trying to get closer to each other. On the contrary, the princess of the Ling family, who was sitting high up on the stage, seemed to have been forgotten. No one asked about the wine, and no one greeted her. Fortunately, Ling Junyun was already used to such a scene. She watched the battle on the stage seriously. On the other hand, Yu Wei, who was standing behind Ling Junyun, felt indignant for Princess Ling. Unfortunately, he could only hide it in his heart and didn't dare to express it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to walk out of here today. In the arena, Lin Tianya's pupils shrank as he frantically retreated. Out of the 6 fire phoenixes in the air, only 4 of them had been destroyed by Lin Tianya's ice dragon. The remaining 2 charged straight at Lin Tianyi. Lin Tianyi stood still. The swords in his hands merged into a giant greatsword. The fire phoenixes charged forward, and Lin Tianyi stabbed the greatsword into the ground. Boom! Suddenly, 4 high walls rose from the ground. When the high walls passed over the fire phoenix, the 4 high walls merged together to form a hemispherical shape, firmly trapping the fire phoenix within. Lin Tianyi was very proud. He pulled out his greatsword, and the hemisphere shrank until it was the size of a basketball. The first exchange between the two had ended. Lin Tianyi dragged his greatsword and prepared to charge at Yi Hao. However, he realized that Yi Hao had suddenly disappeared. He couldn't find Yi Hao anywhere. Is it a spirit array? Old Lin, who was sitting high up on the stage, immediately saw through it. He was about to remind Lin Tianyi. Not far away, Yuan Shu smiled and said, "Old Lin, come, let me toast you. The Sky Street Convention has its rules. Old Lin, don't break them." Of course. Old Lin forced a smile and slowly drank the wine in his cup. Lin Tianyi still didn't understand what was going on. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared behind him. A fiery red sword light came at him. Lin Tianyi turned around to receive it. In the blink of an eye, the figure disappeared again. On the other side, the battles in the 3rd and 4th arenas had already ended. The 2nd arena was also nearing its end. Lin Tianyi became more and more anxious. The 1st arena clearly had the highest chance of winning, but he hadn't been able to obtain victory. If word got out, Lin Tianyi, would become a laughingstock. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, he saw a flash of spirit power in the center of the arena. Lin Tianyi's heart skipped a beat. He immediately rushed over and raised his greatsword. So it's a spirit array. Watch me destroy your spirit array and force you to show yourself. Buzz. As soon as Lin Tianyi arrived at the center of the arena, he had a bad premonition. Before he could make a move, Yi Hao had already appeared behind him. His hands quickly formed a seal, and at the same time, he inserted a spirit stone into the ground. You've been tricked. Spirit array, spirit binding. Walala. Many vines formed from spirit energy emerged from the ground and bound Lin Tianyi in the air. The great sword in his hand fell to the ground. Lin Tianyi, who was bound, wasn't willing to be captured without a fight. He slowly struggled, but the more he struggled, the tighter the vines became. Gradually, Lin Tianyi was tied up like a dumpling. Yi Hao looked at the spirit array he had carefully arranged, and the corners of his mouth rose. From the beginning, he had planned to use a spirit array to control the situation, then slowly deal with Lin Tianyi. When the Fire Phoenix and the Ice Dragon had started fighting, he had already been observing the terrain. This battle was far less intense than Qi Yan's battle, so he had only arranged 2 spirit arrays. One was a concealment spirit array to hide his figure, and the other was a spirit-binding spirit array to bind the enemy. As for the opening in the center of the arena, he had purposely exposed it to bait Lin Tianyi. As for where he had learned so many spirit arrays, it was all thanks to the hard work he had put in during the past 2 months. Yi Hao had completed many side quests, and the system had rewarded him with a few spirit array diagrams and a few chances to summon a martial general. Yi Hao had nothing to do, so he had carved the inscriptions of a spirit array onto a spirit stone. As long as he placed the inscriptions in the right place during a battle, he would be able to quickly form a complete spirit array. This greatly reduced the time it took to arrange the spirit array. The few chances to summon a martial general had been used up during the fierce battle 2 days ago. He had originally wanted to keep Bing Yi, but unfortunately, he had failed. Yi Hao collected his thoughts and slowly walked towards the center of the spirit array. Chapter 1485. Yi Hao looked at Lin Tianyi, who was tied up like a dumpling, and said, "Stop struggling. This is an advanced Spirit Emperor level formation. Unless you're a 9th level Spirit Emperor, you won't be able to break it. Woo-woo. Although Lin Tianyi couldn't break free, he was still unwilling to give up. He kept wriggling and growling. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for being too careless. Yi Hao held his sword with both hands and said softly, "My Dao sword, 24 slashes." Bang! Yi Hao kicked Lin Tianyi, who had been wrapped up like a dumpling, into the air. Then, with a slight push of his feet, he charged into the air as well. He raised the My Dao sword in his hand and wildly attacked Lin Tianyi. In 3 breaths of time, 24 red sword lights flashed in the sky. After 3 breaths of time, Lin Tianyi groaned and fell outside the stage, unconscious. After 3 breaths of time, Yi Hao safely landed on the ground. At the same time, the battle in the second stage also ended. Yu Sanjiang stood on the stage, gasping for breath. Now, the first round of the competition was over. On the stage, Ling Junyuan's tightly clenched fist slowly loosened. Yu and Shu had a sinister smile, Yu Yingwan had a calm expression, and Elder Lin crushed the wine cup in his hand. Qin Yunji looked deeply at Yi Hao and laughed loudly. Soon, the remaining 5 rounds of the competition were over. Only 12 people were left. However, the second round of the competition wasn't over yet. They still had to fight one-on-one to determine the final 6 people to enter the third round. After 2 hours, the 12 contestants went up to draw lots. This time, Yi Hao's opponent was an 8th-level Spirit Emperor cultivator from the Raging Flame Empire. Yu Sanjiang's opponent was one of the most popular contenders for the championship, Qin Gaozhan. Yu Sanjiang's match was first, so Yi Hao sat below the stage to watch. Qin Gaozhan wasn't old, the same age as Yu Sanjiang, but his cultivation was at the 9th-level Spirit Emperor level, far surpassing his peers. On the stage, Yu Sanjiang made an inviting gesture to Qin Gaozhan. However, Qin Gaozhan was indifferent. He yawned lazily and said, "I don't think there's a need to fight anymore." Yu Sanjiang was puzzled. "Why?" Qin Gaozhan laughed loudly and said, "Because you people from the Qingyu district are all trash. Although you are from the Yu family, you are still trash. Do you think you can beat me?" Yu Sanjiang's expression turned slightly angry as he said, "Whether or not we can beat them, we'll only know after we fight." After saying this, Yu Sanjiang drew his 3-foot-long sword and rushed toward Qin Gao. On the high platform, Yu and Shu looked at the jade Buddha stone on Yu Sanjiang's waist and smiled sinisterly. Then he said to Yu Yingwan, "Yu family head, although young Master Yu is strong, if he encounters the Qing family's Qin Gao battle, I'm afraid he will lose. It's better to be careful." Yu Yingwan clenched his fists and stared at the battle. He said, "Thank you for your concern, Yu family head. My son's skills are not good, so it's good that he loses. It's not a bad thing to see the world." Not far away, Qin Yunji looked at the battle and muttered to himself, "Since he met the trash of the Yu family, then there's no need to show mercy. Treat him well." As soon as he said this, Qin Gaozhan, who had been dodging on the stage, suddenly stopped and punched out at Yu Sanjiang's long sword. Long sword against fist. Yu Sanjiang was not a match. He retreated dozens of steps before stabilizing himself. He took a deep breath and said angrily, "Qin Gaozhan, are you looking down on me? Bring out your true strength and have a fair fight with me." "You need me to bring out my true strength to beat a trash? You think too highly of yourself." Qin Gaozhan sneered. He was still barehanded. Yu Sanjiang roared and waved his long sword in the air. Gradually, an ink painting unfolded in the air. Qin Gaozhan laughed loudly and said, "I've long heard that the Yu family's ink swordsmanship is famous. Let me see it today." After saying this, he jumped in without waiting for Yu Sanjiang to fully unfold the ink painting. "Hiss, this Qin Gaozhan doesn't put Yu Sanjiang in his eyes. The ink painting hasn't even taken shape yet, and he jumped in. Isn't he too bold? You have to know that the ink painting is equivalent to a small world. Going in like this is equivalent to entering Yu Sanjiang's home ground. It's not a good choice." Below the stage, the crowd whispered. It was clear that they had some understanding of the Yu family's ink swordsmanship. However, The crowd was more surprised by Qin Gaozhan's arrogance or Yu Sanjiang's weakness. Yi Hao silently stood below the stage and stared at the stage. His right hand rested on his interspatial ring. His body was tense, and the spirit energy in his body surged. On the stage, Yu Sanjiang clearly didn't expect Qin Gaozhan to directly jump in. Although it saved him a lot of effort, it still made him furious. He couldn't help but speed up his ink painting. Qin Gaozhan, you asked for this. Haha, trash of the Yu family. Your spirit energy is really weak. It's been so long, but you still haven't finished your ink painting? Facing Qin Gaozhan's ridicule, Yu Sanjiang's face turned red, and he sped up his swordsmanship. On the stage, Yu Yingluan looked at Qin Yunji's sinister smile, and his heart tightened. He secretly said, "Not good." At this moment, Qin Gaozhan, who was in the ink painting, mocked again. Still not done? Since that's the case, I'll first experience the power of this ink painting sword. Before he finished speaking, Yu Sanjiang had already quietly put away his sword. The ink painting was completely unfolded. Everyone looked over and saw that in the middle of the ink painting, there was a small black dot that slowly stopped moving. Then, it turned into a drop of ink. Yu Sanjiang sneered. With a wave of his right hand, the entire ink painting rolled up and came to Yu Sanjiang's hand. Good. The Yu family's ink painting swordsmanship is indeed worthy of its reputation. It directly trapped Qin Gaozhan inside. Powerful, powerful. Even a 9th-level Spirit Emperor can't do anything to it. This ink painting swordsmanship is indeed remarkable. The crowd below the stage clapped and cheered. Yu Sanjiang's face was also filled with pride. However, Yi Hao's tense body didn't relax because of this. Instead, he slowly pulled out his sword. On the high stage, Yu Yingluan couldn't hold it in anymore and directly roared, "Sanjiang, let go of the painting." Suddenly, on the stage, Yu Sanjiang's face changed. He hurriedly let go of the painting in his hand. Before he could throw the painting far away, he could faintly see waves of spirit energy coming from the painting. Then, it directly exploded on the stage. After that, a black figure flew out from the smoke. Before the black figure could land on the ground, it was thrown high up into the air. Then, Qin Gaozhan, who was safe and sound, snatched Yu Sanjiang's 3-feet-long sword and stepped on Yu Sanjiang's face. Then, he stabbed Yu Sanjiang's body again and again. Yu Sanjiang's wail spread throughout the entire arena. Boom! Yu Sanjiang was heavily stepped on by Qin Gaozhan. The entire stage collapsed into a large pit. Qin Gaozhan looked at Yu Sanjiang under his feet and sneered. Trash is trash, aha! Chapter 1486. Qin Gaozhan tapped his foot and threw Yu Sanjiang into the air again. Just as he was about to do the same thing, a black figure moved. Yu Yingluan looked at the black figure and sat down silently because someone had made a move before him. Trash dot. Qin Gaozhan came above Yu Sanjiang and pointed his sword down, slowly approaching his heart. At this moment, a fiery red sword light shot out and deflected the 3-foot-long sword. Qin Gaozhan was furious. He focused his eyes and saw a kick toward his face. He snorted and punched out. The fist and leg collided. Qin Gaozhan didn't move at all. The attacker retreated dozens of steps and saved Yu Sanjiang, who was about to fall to the ground. Qin Gaozhan landed on the ground and looked at the uninvited guest. He sneered, "Oh, I was wondering who it was. So it's the other trash of the Qingyu duo." Yi Hao looked at Yu Sanjiang, whose tendons have been severed in his arms, and said to Qin Gaozhan, "He has already lost, and you still want to kill him? Oh, is that so?" Qin Gaozhan picked his ear and said, "But I didn't hear him beg for mercy." Yi Hao released his aura, and his battle intent surged. Qin Gaozhan didn't care and threw his sword at Yi Hao's feet. Cough, cough. Ling Junyan coughed. Yu Qiwei quickly stood up and said, "The victor has been decided. The winner of this battle is Qin Gaozhan. Both sides, please come down." Yi Hao carried Yu Sanjiang on his back and said coldly to Qin Gaozhan, "You better not let me meet you. Otherwise, I'll make sure you die on this stage. Qin Gaozhan sneered. I should be the one saying that. Don't fight me, or I'll make the two trash of the Qingyu duo truly trash. The two coldly looked at each other and got off the stage. Below the stage, Yuing Wan carried Yu Sanjiang, who was unconscious due to excessive blood loss, and left with heavy footsteps. Yuan Shu sneered and said to Qing Yunji, Qing family head is really good. Qing Yunji retorted, Yuan family head? What do you mean? The Heavenly Street meeting was about making friends through martial arts. But in the Battle of Qinggao, they went all out. Clan head Yuan, you're in the wrong here. I don't even know this Qing Gaozhan. You can't possibly think that he's a member of our Qing clan just because his surname is Qing. Good, very good. Yuan Shu coldly snorted and stopped talking. Qing Yunji didn't care, but in his heart, he was delighted. Yihao suppressed his anger and forced the contestant from the Blaze Empire to retreat step by step. In the end, the other contestant chose to admit defeat, and Yihao finally gave up. Soon, the remaining matches were over, and the list of the 6 people who had advanced to the 3rd round was out. They were Qin Gaozhan, Yuan Li, Yihao, Huangfu Jingxin, Han Zhong, and Lai Yan. As for the Yuan Empire, they had become nothing more than an accompaniment. In the evening, after the competition, Yihao and Wu Wenyong agreed to meet at the Yu residence. At the entrance of the Yu residence, Yihao and Wu Wenyong patiently waited for the servant to pass on the message. Not long after, the servant knocked on the door and invited Yihao and Yu Wenyong in. Under the servant's lead, Yihao and Yu Wenyong saw the haggard Yuing Wan in the main hall. Yihao asked first, You family head, how is Sanjiang? Sigh. Yuing Wan heavily slammed the table and said angrily, His situation isn't good. Although the bleeding has stopped, he's still unconscious. His tendons are all broken. Even if he wakes up, he won't be able to cultivate for the rest of his life. What? Wu Wenyong was shocked when he heard this. So serious? This Qing family is really despicable. He also watched the competition, so he knew what happened to Yu Sanjiang. He then asked, Then is there any way to solve it? Yuing Wan revealed a difficult expression and said, The person who destroyed Sanjiang's meridians is stronger than Sanjiang. A 4th-level pill can't remove the remaining spiritual energy in Sanjiang's body. It needs a 5th-level healing pill. However, although my Yu family is big, we don't have a single 5th-level healing pill. Wu Wenyong was relieved and then fell silent. Yihao secretly made up his mind and said, I have a 5th-level healing pill. Really? Yuing Wan suddenly revealed a trace of hope. Of course, but Yu family head must say that this pill belongs to your Yu family and has nothing to do with me. Okay. Yuing Wan cried tears of joy. As long as you're willing to help Sanjiang, I'm willing to do anything. Wu Wenyong seemed to have thought of something and said in surprise, You can't be thinking of using the pill that Grandpa Gu gave you, right? Yihao nodded and said, That's right. I've gone through thick and thin with Sanjiang. In my heart, I've already treated him as a friend. I can't just watch him die, so I have to help. Then, the 3 of them came to Yu Sanjiang's room. Yihao took out a green pill and gave it to Yu Sanjiang. Slowly, the chaotic spiritual energy in Yu Sanjiang's body gradually calmed down and began to circulate normally. The remaining spiritual energy in his meridians was also gradually swallowed by the spiritual energy from the pill. His meridians also began to automatically heal. Yuing Wan looked at Yu Sanjiang, whose complexion was gradually improving, and said, It really is a 5th-level healing pill. Little brother Sanjiang, thank you. It's my pleasure. Yihao hurriedly helped Yuing Wan up and explained, This is a 5th-level pill that my master gave me. It's a healing pill and will definitely help Sanjiang recover. Thank you, thank you. Just as the 3 of them were talking, the spiritual energy in Yu Sanjiang's body suddenly skyrocketed. It suddenly surpassed the 8th level of the Spirit Emperor realm and touched the threshold of the 9th level. The rising trend did not stop and continued to rise. Yuing Wan's face lit up with joy. Is this a breakthrough? Wu Wenyong said, I think it's the remaining spiritual energy in the pill that helped Sanjiang break through to the 9th level of the Spirit Emperor realm. Yi Hao said with some regret, "If I knew this pill was so useful, I would have asked my master for more. Speaking of which, I don't know how my master is now. It's been a long time since we parted ways in Lishan City. An old man led a few cultivators and a few alchemists out of the city gate and headed east. Within the borders of the Pill Sect Empire, there was a group of several thousand people heading towards the north. They were led by a man and a woman. The woman's face was cold, as if she did not want anyone to get close to her. The man was lively and active and often liked to talk to himself. The man stood at the front of the group and said, "I heard that Elder Gu has taken in a disciple. Aren't you curious who it is?" The woman lightly replied. "Elder Gu has never taken in a disciple before. I didn't expect him to take in a disciple this time. It's really rare. And I heard that the kid is younger than us, but he's already a 4th level alchemist. How about it? Are you interested?" This time, the woman did not speak, but quickened her pace. If you like the Primal Chaos Emperor system, please add it to your collection. Primal Chaos Emperor System Green Bean updates the fastest. Chapter 1487. The man looked at the woman's blurry figure and muttered, "Elder Gu has already rushed to Tianyuan New City. I reckon that when we arrive, we will be able to meet Elder Gu's only disciple. I have the same thoughts as you. When the time comes, I will definitely meet that person." Following which, the man put away his thoughts and urged the group to speed up and reach Tianyuan New City as soon as possible. Qingshan Imperial City, Qingyu District, Yu residence. Yi Hao and Wu Wenyong said goodbye to Yuing Wan at the door and returned to the inn. The two of them returned to the inn and went to sleep in their own rooms. There were still 2 days before the 3rd round of the Heavenly Street Convention. Yi Hao was not in a hurry to rest. Instead, he took out a set of array diagrams and studied it carefully. After an unknown period of time, the lamp in the room suddenly flickered. Yi Hao frowned and kept the array diagrams. He looked at the black figure in front of the window and said, "Immortal Cloud Pavilion, Dark Department?" The black figure stood at the window and did not move. With a hoarse voice, he said, "Young Master Yi, young Master Shu invites you." "Invite? Where to?" "Green Fallen Peak, Immortal Cloud Pavilion." Following which, the black figure jumped out of the window. Yi Hao blew out the lamp and followed closely. The two of them walked in the dark night one after another. Not long later, the black figure brought Yi Hao out of Qingyu District and arrived at a hidden forest. In the center of the forest, there was a sacrificial altar made of spiritual stones. There was a faint flow of spiritual energy on top of the altar. The black figure stood at the center of the sacrificial altar. Yi Hao followed him. Following which, the black figure slowly squatted down. He cut his wrist and dripped a drop of blood on the sacrificial altar. At the same time, he was chanting something. Suddenly, the sacrificial altar under Yi Hao's feet exploded with a dazzling light. Following which, a white pillar of light shot up into the sky. Not long later, the light disappeared by itself. Only a black figure was left on the sacrificial altar. A painful dizziness came over. When Yi Hao opened his eyes again, he discovered that the sacrificial altar had disappeared. What replaced it was a fake mountain, a lake, and a fragrant garden. Right in front of the rockery, a familiar figure was slowly walking over. That figure came in front of Yi Hao and said with a smile, "Long time no see, Yi Hao." Yi Hao looked at that person and frowned. "Don't. If possible, I would rather not see you." Exiled Immortal chuckled. He didn't mind and continued to lead the way. Yi Hao followed behind him silently. Along the way, Yi Hao did not see a single person. He only saw some flowers and plants, so he asked, "This is the Celestial Cloud Pavilion?" "That's right." Banished Immortal pinched his fingers and said, "Because time was tight, Mr. Shu ordered someone to send you here using a teleportation formation. Immortal Cloud, Immortal Cloud, Immortal Cloud. Immortal Cloud, Immortal laughed, Immortal Immortal. Exiled Immortal chuckled. That wasn't an ordinary teleportation formation. It's a blood sacrifice formation that uses essence blood and spirit stones as support. Even so, it still used up a lot of spirit stones to send you to this courtyard. It's not something that can be used easily. I think Immortal Cloud Pavilion has something important to tell me. I don't know. You have to ask Immortal Cloud Pavilion yourself. Then, Immortal Cloud Pavilion led Yi Hao through many stone doors and corridors. They stopped in front of stone wall. Immortal Cloud Pavilion looked at the row of candles on the left. Finally, he walked to the second candle and turned its base gently. Buzz. The stone wall turned gently and the door opened. Immortal Cloud Pavilion said softly, "Go in. Immortal Cloud Pavilion is waiting for you inside." Yi Hao took a step forward. As soon as he walked in, the stone wall closed with a bang. Yi Hao walked in the dark corridor and saw a ray of light at the end of the corridor. After passing through, he found that the secret room behind the stone wall wasn't as dark as he imagined. Instead, it was brightly lit. However, in this huge underground secret room, other than Yuan Shu, who was sitting on a chair with his back to him, he was the only one. "You're here." Yuan Shu's familiar voice sounded in the secret room. However, his back was still facing Yi Hao. Yi Hao walked forward quietly and asked, "Yes. What do you want from me?" Hee. Yuan Shu chuckled and pointed to a piece of white cloth beside him. "There really is something that I have to ask you to come for." "What is it?" "There's a piece of white cloth over there. Take a look." Yi Hao walked over and took a look. He found 2 headless corpses. He immediately understood. "How is it? Do you know them?" Yuan Shu stood up and came to Yi Hao's side. "Yes, they're from the Dark Department of the Celestial Cloud Pavilion." "So, these 2 people were really killed by you?" Yuan Shu stared coldly at Yi Hao. His black pupils revealed a deep questioning. "Yes." Yi Hao didn't dodge Yuan Shu's questioning. He looked straight at Yuan Shu and said, "These 2 people followed me. I thought they wanted to harm me, so I ordered 2 guards of the 8th level of the Spirit Emperor realm to kill them. Also, why did you send people to follow me? If you really don't trust me, just kill me. Why do you have to do this?" Yuan Shu didn't answer. Instead, he stared at Yi Hao's red pupils, as if he wanted to see if Yi Hao was lying. After a while, Yuan Shu smiled and said, "Don't be angry. There are many forces in the Qingshan Imperial City. I was afraid that you would accidentally offend someone from a big force, so I sent people to protect you secretly. I didn't expect this to happen. The protection is fake. The surveillance is real, right?" "Yi Hao, you misunderstood. If I had known that you had 2 guards of the 8th level of the Spirit Emperor realm, I wouldn't have added feet to a snake." Yi Hao snorted, but his expression eased a little. He said to Yuan Shu, "You don't have to be suspicious of me. My teacher is the 5th level alchemist, Gu Sheng. I think you already know this. As for these 2 guards, they were given to me by him. They just arrived not long ago. You should be relieved now." Yuan Shu laughed and patted Yi Hao's shoulder. "Yi Hao, what are you talking about? How could I be worried about you?" Suddenly, Yuan Shu took out a Buddha-shaped jade stone. He held it in his hand and snapped his fingers at Yi Hao. Yi Hao was stunned. He froze in place, his eyes empty. Yuan Shu circled Yi Hao again and again. At the same time, he sneered, "Huh, you want to fight with me? You're still too inexperienced. No matter how strong you are, once you've been hit by the Gu Heartstone, you can only be obediently manipulated by me." When Yuan Shu circled him for the 3rd time, Yi Hao suddenly moved. Then, he came back to his senses and gasped for breath. Yuan Shu stopped sneering and thought, "It seems that the Gu Heartstone hasn't completely taken over his mind. However, it's still very effective. There's no harm in waiting." Yi Hao, who had returned to normal, asked, "What happened just now?" Yuan Shu smiled and said, "No, you were just distracted." Chapter 1488. Is that so? Yi Hao was a bit suspicious. He clearly remembered that he lost consciousness and couldn't move his body. Seeing this, Yuan Shu changed the topic All right, there's another important thing that I called you here for. What is it? Didn't I promise you that I would help you win? Yuan Shu poured 2 cups of wine on the table and handed one to Yi Hao. Since you promised, you'll definitely do it. Also, if you win and marry that Ling Junyun, it will only be good for the Yuan clan. But I'm only a 6th level spirit emperor. I might be able to fight against an 8th level spirit emperor, but it's hard to say if I'm facing a 9th level spirit emperor. It doesn't matter. The only enemy you have to face is Qin Gaozhan. HM? Yi Hao didn't understand. Yuan Shu clapped his hands. Suddenly, a figure walked out from the corner. Yi Hao was a bit surprised to see the figure. Yuan Shu pointed at the figure and said to Yi Hao, "This is Yuan Li. He's someone that the Yuan clan sent to participate in this competition. Don't worry, he won't be your opponent. If you two meet in the 3rd round, Yuan Li will immediately admit defeat." Hearing this, Yi Hao looked at Yuan Li. Yuan Li lowered his head and nodded. Yi Hao relaxed and said, "Even so, I'm afraid it'll be hard for me to win against Qin Gao." Yuan Shu laughed and waved his hand to let Yuan Li leave first. Then, he brought Yi Hao to a small room in the secret room. Yuan Li raised his head and looked at Yi Hao's back. A trace of unwillingness flashed in his black eyes, but he quickly hid it and left the secret room. Yuan Shu pointed at the stone seat in the room that was slowly flowing with spiritual energy and said, "This stone seat was formed naturally. It's connected to the spirit vein under our green fallen peak. Cultivating here for a day is equivalent to cultivating outside for 10 days. In these 2 days, I'll let the people in the residence bring you treasures. Prepare to break through to the 7th level Spirit Emperor." Then, Yuan Shu left without giving Yi Hao a chance to speak. Yi Hao looked at Yuan Shu's departing figure, and the corners of his mouth rose slightly. Not long after, someone brought some treasures to the small room. After putting them down, they left. Yi Hao sat cross-legged on the stone seat with his eyes closed. He quietly absorbed the spiritual energy around him and began to break through to the 8th level Spirit Emperor. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. On the night before Yi Hao was about to take part in the competition, a strong spiritual qi of heaven and earth spread out from the secret chamber of the Yuan mansion. Yi Hao looked at his hands, his face full of joy. Yuan Shu leaned against the door and said with a smile, "Not bad. You didn't let me down. You broke through to the 7th level Spirit Emperor." "Thank you, Master Shu." Yi Hao cupped his hands and thanked him. Yuan Shu waved his hand and said, "If you really want to thank me, then take down the champion. Of course, stabilize your cultivation and go find Jixian. He'll take you away." Okay. 4 hours later, Yi Hao left the secret room. Under Jixian's lead, they returned to the forest through the blood sacrifice array. Yi Hao looked at the black figure on the altar. When he was about to thank him, the black figure left. Yi Hao could only silently follow him back to the inn. After Yi Hao left, Jixian went into the secret room. Yuan Shu sat on a chair and asked lazily. Yi Hao left. He left. Jixian stood to the side, wanting to say something, but hesitating. Yuan Shu glanced at him and shouted, "Is there something else?" Jixian gathered his courage and said, "Master, I just want to ask, is it right or wrong for us to raise Yi Hao like this?" Yuan Shu sneered. Jixian hurriedly knelt. "Do you think your master would do something that would make him lose money?" Jixian touched the ground with his head and said hurriedly, "My master is wise and powerful. Of course, he wouldn't do something that would make him lose money." Yuan Shu twirled the wine cup in his hand and murmured, "What I give Yi Hao now, I'll take it all back soon with interest." Yuan Shu kicked Jixian and asked, "How's Yuan Mu?" "Master, everything is as usual. Good. So keep a close eye on him at this critical juncture. Don't be careless." "Yes. All right. Withdraw the shadow guards you sent to keep an eye on Yi Hao." Jixian was confused. Yuan Shu kicked him and shouted angrily, "Did you not hear what this master said? Withdraw all of them." Yes. Jixian kowtowed like he was pounding garlic. He hurriedly agreed and left. The next day, the remaining 6 contestants gathered in Qingshan district for the final round of the competition. Yuchi Wei, who had changed into a red official's robe, stood on the stage and said loudly, "Today is the third round of the competition. The champion of this year's Heavenly Street Convention will be decided from the remaining 6 contestants. Those who aren't here, don't worry. Take out your projection stone, and you'll still be able to see the broadcast of the competition. Now, let me introduce the top 6 contestants of this year's Heavenly Street Convention. First, Qingyun Peak, Qin Gaozhan, 9th Stage Spirit Emperor. Second, Qing Luo Peak, Yuan Li, 9th Stage Spirit Emperor. 6th, Tenyuan Empire, Yi Sangao, 6th Stage Spirit Emperor. After the introduction of the 6 contestants, the most popular ones were Qin Gaozhan and Yuan Li. As for Yi Sangao, many people thought he was just here to be a bystander. After the introduction of the contestants, the 6 contestants went on stage to draw lots. Then they faced each other to decide the final 3. Yihao was very lucky. He didn't have to fight Qin Gaozhan and Yuan Li. His opponent was Lai Yin from the Raging Flame Empire. Qin Gaozhan's opponent was Han Zhong from the Han family. Yuan Li's opponent was the only woman in the 6, Yuan Jingxin. The 6 people went on stage at the same time, and the competition began. Yihao made an inviting gesture to Lai Yin. Lai Yin also returned the gesture. Then Lai Yin raised his blade with both hands. His body tensed up as he stared at Yihao and said, "I know you. Although your cultivation isn't strong, your spirit formation isn't weak. I won't be as careless as Lin Tianyi. So, you have no chance of winning this competition." Yihao chuckled and said, "Is that so?" At this moment, the Han family's patriarch, Han Shi, suddenly roared, "Qin Yunji, what is the meaning of this? How can you be so heavy-handed toward my Han family?" Qin Yunji replied indifferently, "Didn't I already say that Qin Gaozhan isn't from my Qing family? What does it have to do with me?" "You." Han Shi's face turned red with anger. Qin Gaozhan kicked Han Zhong, whose tendons had been broken, out of the stage and laughed loudly. Chapter 1489. Qin Gaozhan looked at the half-dead Han Zhong on the ground and mocked. 2 days ago, I taught the trash of the Yu family a lesson. Who would have thought that it would be your turn today? What a bunch of trash. You're not even a match for me." Speaking of this, Qin Gaozhan glanced at Yihao intentionally or unintentionally. On the high platform, Han Shi angrily smashed his wine cup and left. Yu Yingwan sullenly drank his wine. Yihao looked at Han Zhong and thought of Yu Sanjiang. 2 days ago, Yu Sanjiang was also lying helplessly on the ground and almost met the king of hell. At this moment, Lai Yin, who was bending his legs, suddenly moved and attacked with his blade. Yihao didn't even look and raised his hand to block. Lai Yin was sent flying. The Raging Flame Kingdom Messenger, who was smiling from ear to ear, stiffened and shouted, "Impossible! Yihao is only a 6th-level Spirit Emperor. How could he send Lai Yin flying with one palm? It's impossible." Yuan Shu smiled and said, "Did you see it clearly? Is Yihao really a 6th-level Spirit Emperor?" Hearing this, the Raging Flame Kingdom Messenger took a closer look and murmured, "7th-level Spirit Emperor. That's even more impossible. In just 2 days, he broke through. How is that possible?" Yuan Shu smiled, but didn't say anything. Ling Junyun and Yu Yingwan looked at Yuan Shu at the same time. Their eyes met for a few seconds, and then they looked away. Yihao turned his head and released his aura. He said, "Let's finish this quickly. I can't take it anymore." Lai Yin, who had just stood up, was shocked. Before he could do anything, Yihao appeared in front of him and kicked him away. Lai Yin turned around in the air with difficulty and slashed down with his blade. Yihao shouted angrily. His Crimson Wu Dao sword blocked Lai Yan's attack. Yihao stood where he was without moving an inch. Lai Yan's entire body kept retreating. Yihao waved his sword with one hand and said in a deep voice, "Wu Dao sword, 24 swords." Suddenly, dozens of red sword lights flashed behind Lai Yan's back. Lai Yan wailed, "Stop! I admit defeat. I admit defeat." Bang! Yihao withdrew his sword and landed safely on the ground. Lai Yan fell from midair and half knelt on the ground. Then, He got up and cupped his hands towards Yi Hao, saying, "Thank you for showing mercy, Brother Yi." On the other side, Yuan Li also ended his battle. Huangfu Jingxin, whose right arm was injured, nodded at Yuan Li, who stood proudly before jumping off the stage. At this point, the final three had already been decided. They were Qin Gao, Zhan, Yuan Li, and Yi Sangao. The three of them rested for 2 hours before drawing lots again. The two people with numbers written on their lots would fight each other. Those without numbers would get a bye and directly enter the finals. Yi Hao slowly unfolded the piece of paper and saw the number 1 written on it. He raised his head and met Qin Gao Zhan's gaze. Qin Gao Zhan smiled as he showed the piece of paper with numbers written on it. Then, he made a throat-slitting gesture towards Yi Hao. Yuan Li looked at the blank piece of paper in his hand with a hesitant expression. He slowly put it away and sat in the contestant area. Yi Hao and Qin Gao Zhan went onto the stage. Yi Hao, who was standing on the stage, pulled out his Wu Dao sword and stabbed it into the ground. He coldly looked at Qin Gao Zhan. On the stage, Qin Yunji casually said, "Let's not keep this person alive." On the stage, Qin Gao Zhan sneered and stretched his body. He loudly said, "Yo, isn't this the other trash of the Qin Yu duo, Yi Sangao? Your luck is not bad. You actually made it here. Whether it's luck or not, you come and try." Yi Hao made a provocative gesture towards Qin Gao Zhan. Qin Gao Zhan coldly snorted and mocked. "Don't tell me you think you can fight me just because you defeated 2 trash of the 8th level Spirit Emperor realm. You should know that the difference between the 9th level and the 8th level is not something you, as 7th level, can understand." After he finished speaking, the faces of the envoys from the Yuan Empire and the Raging Flame Empire turned cold. Qin Gao Zhan did not care about the 2 important figures at all. He continued, "Didn't you see? Han Zhong, who is also an 8th level Spirit Emperor, couldn't even last 3 rounds against me. Do you still think the 8th level is very powerful?" Yi Hao still had a smile on his face. He said, "What you gave Sangao that day, I will pay you back double." "What a joke. You? Go to hell." Yi Hao pulled out his sword. Qin Gao Zhan swung his fist. The two collided. Yuan Shu looked at the battle on the arena. He swirled the wine in his cup and looked at Yuan Li. He said to himself, "Yi Hao, if you defeat Qin Gao Zhan, you will be the champion of the Heavenly Street Convention. Don't disappoint me." Not far away, Ling Junyun and Yu Yingluan were watching the battle closely. Yi Hao's victory or defeat would determine whether their cooperation could continue. Bang! After the first collision, Qin Gao Zhan did not move at all. Yi Hao retreated to the edge of the arena. Qin Gao Zhan smiled ferociously. "Trash will always be trash. You can't even take a punch from me. Go to hell." Yi Hao's face turned cold. 6 fire phoenixes soared into the sky. Qin Gao Zhan did not even look at them. He punched, and the 6 fire phoenixes turned into nothingness. Then he took a step forward to the edge of the arena. His left fist went straight for Yi Hao's abdomen. Yi Hao gently turned around and dodged Qin Gao Zhan's full-force attack. Before he could completely escape the attack range, Qin Gao Zhan's fist turned into a palm and went straight for Yi Hao's head. Yi Hao looked at the incoming palm. He did not doubt that if he was hit by this palm, his head would definitely explode. Without hesitation, he shook his sleeves. Several flying swords, flashing with cold light, went straight for Qin Gao Zhan's head. It was a life for a life. As long as Qin Gao Zhan did not withdraw his attack, his head would definitely be pierced by the flying swords that Yi Hao fed with his blood. Qin Gao Zhan wanted to take it head on, but when he saw the red light on the tip of the flying swords, he withdrew his hand and retreated to avoid the flying swords. Yi Hao landed safely in the distance. He waved his left hand, and the flying swords returned to his sleeves. In just an instant, the two sides had gone back and forth twice. They had wandered outside the gates of hell twice. Yi Hao provoked. 3 rounds have passed. What other moves do you have? Use them. Otherwise, you won't have a chance. Qin Gao Zhan's fist collided and sneered. What a joke. A mere 7th level Spirit Emperor trash. Is he worth my full force? On the high platform, Qin Yunji narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself, Use your full force. Let him die thoroughly. Don't waste any more time. In the arena, Qin Gaozhan suddenly changed his mind. He moved his fists forward, and a pair of black gloves suddenly appeared on his hands. Qin Gaozhan's aura soared, and soon, everyone present turned pale with fright. This guy, is he finally showing his true strength? Yu only looked at Qin Gaozhan coldly. TSK, I didn't expect this Qin Gaozhan to have some skills. This time, Yihao won't be easy to deal with. Yuan Shu muttered to himself. This is... Ling Juanyun's expression changed. She had been stuck at the 9th level Spirit Emperor for many years. She was very familiar with Qin Gaozhan's aura. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.